And there's the microphone, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle. A very, very special Stratosphere Lounge tonight. And there's the microphone, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle. I did that on purpose. It's all intentional. Everything you see here on the show is carefully timed by computers. So we got a really fun show tonight. And the reason we got a fun show tonight is we have a special guest from North Carolina, but actually from 1973. And I've just been looking forward to this for a long time. Let me just kind of set you up here. Let's see. I put him in over the other thing, so there was no sound. And somebody just said, "There's Doug. Slide on in here, pal." So here we are. And I realized that I had put them up in an area where there was no sound, because that's what I do. I'll just do that again. Here we go. Here's the picture. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. That is Mr. Philtrick right there in the middle with the bitchin' sunglasses. I'm on the far left. Doug Gagan looking at the camera, and Herb Bradbury, not pictured. Here we are. And so we're going to be talking about those days, because it wasn't just a question of, just having a lot of fun there, although I did. It was just a real formative time. And don't blame me, this guy's responsible for most of it.
That's right.
Yep. So I got this, I came back from Bermuda, went to the Miami Planetarium on a field trip with my, just with my junior high, I guess it was, or elementary school. And I looked and saw this thing, oh my God, I got to come back here. And so I did. And when I did, Phil here was the engineer. And recording engineer and head technician and all that stuff. And we have a couple of nostalgic pictures to set the mood. Let's see here. First of all, this is the actual star projector from the console. And we'll talk about this a little bit, probably a lot. But we both have like a mystical feeling about this machine. There's something about this machine that I don't know. It's not just a machine. In fact, it was there since 1966. I got there in 73. When did you get there, Phil?
1970.
70. And then this thing finally retired, I want to say maybe 5-6 years ago. They built a new planetarium, but because I thought this thing was going to end up with the black light paintings. I told you what happened to them.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so I thought this thing was just going to be reduced to turned into razor blades. But as it turns out, somebody saved it. And now all I have to do is find that picture. That's not it.
Look, with the two of us, we can't find the pictures any better than you usually do.
Yeah, and I refuse to wear my glasses because I look reflective. Anyway, you know what? I'm just kind of. Where is that son of a gun? It's here somewhere. No, that's not it.
Right enough, you don't need that.
Well, hang on, gang. Hang-a-rooney here.
As you've said many times
Many
in the
times.
past.
It feels like an eternity.
Best technical show on the internet.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's... No, that's the back room.
Back room, yeah.
Hang on, kids. There it is. Okay, here it is. So somehow, through some miracle, they managed to open the Miami
Miami
History Museum, and there it is. And actually, you know, that other picture was an old picture. This was taken pretty recently. It actually looks like real,
good. Yeah.
real, you know.
Yep. Yeah.
So they didn't sacrifice it; they kept it going, and by golly, that was something. So you got this kid who wanted to be an astronaut and wasn't able to do it, and the next thing you know, I'm working in a space simulator.
Yep.
$1 million space simulator, and we would fly that thing around and had ourselves an absolute blast. So one of the problems that Phil had, at least from this end, I know, is like he had he had to constantly deal with the fact that I would be missing my bus for school. Just amazing how many times I missed that bus for school. I was careless about that bus, and instead of taking the bus for school, where I was in 7th grade, and you know, I finished the reading assignment for the week in 6.5 minutes. I'd go visit the planetarium, and Phil had to decide whether you're going to send me back to school or whether you thought actually, you know, you can go back and be tortured in this horrible place that you hate, but you can stay here and learn something.
So in the mornings was the time when we did most of the maintenance work on the planetarium. The planetarium was a 65-foot diameter aluminum dome that you sat inside, and there actually were 2 layers to the dome. There was the aluminum dome, and then on the outside was the outer shell that was decorated and still was just a big dome. And in between those two was about 10 feet or so of workspace all the way around. And from the back, we had lots of carousel projectors and some custom-made projectors and all sorts of manner of things that we used to project stuff up on the dome. Well, all this stuff took maintenance work or resetting for another show. So usually it was the mornings when we were working in there. And as Bill points out, sometimes I just missed the bus. You know, I don't know. And
hey, how's it going?
That's right. We would have to decide, well, are we going to be part of the truancy program here, or what's going to happen here? So we might have been working on something in the planetarium, and he might convince us that, you know, we didn't really need to run him over to the local junior high school there or whatever it might be. So that's where this talk comes from about hanging out at the planetarium, especially in the mornings when we had the chance to do the work, unless we had a school show going on. School shows also ran in the morning.
Right. Now, I know all of you are thinking, my God, what an incredibly glamorous job that must have been.
It was.
Yeah, it was. It was nothing but glamour. And I have here a picture indicating the level of glamour that we had managed to entertain. And we'll just tilt up a little bit. And we'll just tilt up a little bit. And we'll tilt up a little bit. And we'll tilt up. And we'll look down and we'll see those nasty hobbit feet there.
You should have shown this to Mike for Dirty Jobs.
I should have shown it for Mike. And Mike is such a Horkheimer fan. He went nuts over Jack Horkheimer. So the question is, why is it that a wayward 13-year-old urchin looks like he just got off of an oil derrick in the middle of a planetarium in Miami? There must be some kind of an explanation for this, and it turns out, in fact, that there is. So I'll make this relatively brief. He knows more about this than I do. You got the star projector, one hemisphere, the other hemisphere, northern, southern hemispheres. And inside both of them is a very, very precise little arc light. And this would make as close to a point source of light as you could, and then it would go through little lenses or pinholes and project like real stars on really realistic looking stars on the dome. Great. Problem is that this arc light is coming out in all directions, and you can't have stars below the horizon because it blows the effect. So they had to think of some way to create an artificial horizon to kill all the stars below halfway. And they came up with an idea that was a really, 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 really bad idea. They mounted the arc light to the base of the thing, and then they surrounded it with like a glass sphere, glass spheres.
Hemispheres. Yeah.
Hemispheres,
yeah.
Right. And inside the glass hemisphere, sandwiched between them, was this opaque liquid. And since the liquid would always stay level, whatever position either one of the star projectors was on, you'd get the oil, and the oil would basically give you this horizon. Marvelous. Except that these arc lights were occasionally prone to explode. And often when they'd explode, they'd take the artificial horizon oil with it. which meant that you'd be in the middle of a show and
Snap.
boom. And if you're lucky, it's just boom. And if you're not lucky, it's boom. So that picture is the result of what? It's 9 years, 6, 7 years? 7 years.
7 years.
Of oil dripping out of this machine. And the planetarium was so, they did not close that thing.
No, absolutely no. It was a major fund. The ticket sales were a major funding source for the museum. So, we couldn't afford to.
At all.
Yeah.
And so this oil built up, and then finally we had, was it 36 hours, 2-3 days?
It was less than 48 hours
what
we
was
had
it?
of downtime.
Why?
Yeah, it would have started at 6 p.m. and we had to be done by 8 a.m.
The day after.
That. Yeah.
And why did we close? Do you remember?
I think we must have had some sort of a significant problem with the STP, with the projector. That finally got the upper level management to give us that much downtime, and I don't recall now what it was.
We closed for 1 day.
Yeah.
And that was the only day that we were closed in the time I was there.
Yeah.
So during that day, we had a lot of work to do, and so needless to say, as the senior member of the staff, I got the draw of the glamour job. And basically, I went down into that pit with some solvents and stuff and just basically mopped up a bunch of oil, just muck.
That pit is also the air conditioning return. So all the air that went through the air conditioning system returned back down through there. So what you see, of course, is that oil and then all of the dirt from over the years coming through the air.
Absolutely. Nothing but the finest.
Mm-hmm.
So on the center table here, you can see it on the left there. There's like a turntable, and the star projector sits on top of that. And when I got there, we had like 2 or 3 old color wheel lights.
Oh yes.
So just a
We're
lamp.
gonna talk about
just
that.
a lamp, and then a piece of plastic that slowly spun with 4 different colors, and it would cast different colors up onto the planetary machine. It's kind of a nice effect, actually. That's not a great example of it, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So anyway, these electronics were so bad, and they would just stop, and they wouldn't work, and they were loud and noisy, and we realized that, okay, we got 40 hours or something, and so we worked around the clock, and somewhere around 2 o'clock in the morning, we took all of this horrible electronics that we'd hated for like a year and a half or 2 years, ripped it out of this thing, and went out the back doors, through the light lock, into the parking lot. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We made like a little pyramid out of it, and poured something on it, and just set it on fire. We just burned it.
As a sacrifice to the great god Orion.
To the great god Orion,
yeah. Because Orion was in the sky.
Yep. We just burned it, and it was. We did this 20 years before Office Space, beat up the printer with a baseball bat.
That's right. We're ahead of our time. That's right. Yeah.
So here's another quick look at the high level of technology that we were involved with here. I could actually shrink this down. You can tell the one on the left is a computer rack. And the way you can tell is it says computer rack.
Uh-huh.
For those of you who are, even by the time I got there, this was more like a museum of electronics really than anything. But this was the back room, and this was on the left you can see that panel there with the little dials. So the Space Transit Planetarium was actually an analog computer. It was an analog computer, and it could do something that no other planetarium could do before then, and it didn't do it digitally. What it could do was all the motions of the sky, and all planetariums will do that, but it could also rotate on a third axis, so you could move the sky in front of people, and that meant you could fly it through space, and that was cool. But it also meant that you could control roll, pitch, and yaw, and it would simulate roll, pitch, and yaw in space like a thruster. So the more you'd hold down the yaw, the more you'd start to yaw, and then it would just hold that speed until you held down the other side to slow it down. And that's how I actually met this guy.
Yeah, so we would occasionally write a show where we had to do some sort of docking. They tell me, by the way, that's one of the early Space Transit Planetarium (STP). One of the early STP planetaria were used to do some training on astronauts for docking.
For Apollo.
And so we would do that. We'd project up an image of a docking collar, and then we had another projector on the machine, and your job was to line up the two images.
But it was Buck Rogers.
When you saw it, it was probably in the Buck Rogers show.
Right. So instead of lining up a docking thing, I'm controlling the planetarium, and there's Wilma out in space,
right,
and then these two hands.
We got to reset.
And the hands are stationary,
That's
and
right.
I've got to fly Wilma Deering into these two hands, which was very disappointing to me because I was looking for the cool stuff.
Yeah. So as Bill pointed out, there were 6 buttons. It was
a
called
huge box. It was this gigantic, called the RPY box.
It was called the RPY box for roll, pitch, and yaw. And you had roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right, pitch up, pitch down. And the longer
it was cool. Did you build that, by the way?
You had the one with the square buttons, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I built that one.
They had like different colors of 6 buttons, but it lit up in the dark, and I'm like, man, this is close. This is really close.
Yeah. We bit them. We lit them with different colors, and we printed out little labels that you could read if you weren't old like me and you had to wear glasses all the time. Anyway, so the longer you held the button down, the faster you would go in that direction. Now, of course, most we'd pick somebody from the audience and give them this task. And we would play some kind of silly music, some kind of jazzy kind of silly stuff. And most people would think that they had to hold the button down to continue it moving to the left, let's say you were doing yaw left. But of course, in reality, what you're doing is firing a thruster, so it's that F equals ma stuff from physics. The longer you held down the button, the faster you went. And they would go flying by the target.
And I'll just add at this point that they had a rough idea of how long it would take, so they put like 4 minutes of soundtrack into this. So it's going to take 4 or 5 minutes.
That's right. Yep. And so it just would be a mess. Every now and then we'd have to take control away from them because they'd get it going so fast that we ran the problem of, well, people don't like a lot motion.
Yeah, it gets sick.
And it smells really bad when that happens. So every now and then we would have to stop it and give him control back again. Say, okay, hang on, we'll reset that for you. All right, Mr. Brown, here we go. All right, give it a go again. Well, Bill got in there, Mr. Johnny Quest Spaceman here, and he understood the whole thing. I mean, he knew just what was going on, and he was going to dock in like 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Well, there's no problem there. Just like we could take control away from the people when they were doing too good, we would just take control away, and it would continue to drift. And there's Bill.
And I'm having heart palpitations.
Click,
come on,
click,
you
click,
son of a bitch!
Click, and it just keeps drifting away. Okay, give it back to him.
4-minute sequence, and I was going to do it in like 15 seconds because I knew exactly what I was doing. I'd rehearsed it in my mind, and I'd actually seen this in motion on an earlier show, and I came back again and said, "Hey, can I do the RPY box?" Said, "Yeah, sure, kid, whatever." Gave it to me, and then we flew that thing around, and I was mortified. It's like
you were mad.
I'm not
mad.
It's not working. And then he'd give me the control back, and I'd recover the thing and start to line it up again. And the next thing whoop.
It was probably Doug running the show, by the way. I don't recall for sure.
Sick guy. Yep. So that's how I kind of got started, and I came in like shortly after that. I remember coming in on a Saturday and saying, "Hey, I'll take tickets," and the guy said, "Okay, well, we can't pay you." And I said, "Don't worry, you don't have to do that." And then I said, "I'll be back tomorrow," and he said, "Sure, you will." And I did. I came back Sunday, and then I came back for like the Wednesday night shows. And after about 2 weeks, they took pity on me and signed me up for $2.15 an hour.
Whatever minimum wage was.
Vomit cleaner, oil remover, ticket taker, usher, and all that stuff. So somebody in the comment section mentioned it tonight, and they mentioned it last show. There was a guy who was in the infamous triple knit polyester picture. And I'll see if I can bring that up again. There we go. So that's me on the far left. Herb Redbury is back to the camera. Phil with the glasses and the tie, and Doug Gagan with the bitchin' pants. Parenthetically, the reason that picture was taken was because it was the 200th anniversary? No, 1492. So it would have been 450th anniversary of Columbus discovering some anniversary.
Some anniversary.
Math was involved.
Yep.
And so Eastern Airlines had chartered like a 737, a 727. And we went from Miami, and we were just going to fly over Veracruz or wherever the hell it was he landed. And we circled that. And
one of those Salvadors.
Yeah. And this is us getting ready for the flight, getting ready to go down to the airport. And on the way down, Doug, who used to enjoy enormously making my life miserable, was holding my ticket, physically holding my ticket.
He got your ticket away from you. Yep.
And
yeah.
And on the way to the airport, he said he's not going to let me have the ticket back, and I'm not going to fly unless I would admit that the Klingon Empire is better than the United Federation of Planets, and I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I was nope, not going to do it. And we got closer and closer, and then he's actually gonna keep me from it. It sounds like torture, but it really wasn't. We would have we just work in there all the time. We're just a little family, 4 or 5 of us or something, and so usually we'd work until 5, and then we'd go out and get some food, and usually we'd go to New Hickory barbecue.
Yep.
And I remember once they said, "Where do you want to go?" And they didn't call me Bill. They called me, first they called me Alfie because that's my middle name.
Yep.
I laughed so hard that key lime pie came out of my nose. But then they started calling me Termite. Do I tell them why they called me Termite?
Could you smile for us?
Yes, these are not the original set.
Yeah. Bill had some rather large 2 front teeth out front in the top.
Big teeth.
For those of you dental folks out there, there were his 2 central maxillary incisors. I don't remember what numbers they are. But anyway, Doug tagged him with Termite. And then somehow we found out that he had siblings. And so they had to get named. So they all got bug names.
Steve got Cockroach.
My
brother
Evan
got
Silverfish.
And my sister Melanie
was Ladybug.
Yeah. So I remember being in the ambulatory, this curved, dark place, and they had the beautiful blacklight paintings, which I've said many times have since been destroyed.
Yep.
And Doug said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "Hey, let's go to New Hickory." And Doug said, "All right, we'll go to New Hickory, but you have to do somersaults down the entire
That's right.
roll on the ground down the entire length of the ambulatory." And like a good trained monkey, I did. I just did it. It's like, really? We're going to? Yeah, just.
We'll buy you dinner if you do it.
I still had cartilage back then, and I just did the roll, and that was. We were talking. Mike Rowe is so into Jack Horkheimer. It blew my mind when he opened that interview with that. But Horkheimer was always. He was never part of the gang. He was never part of any gang.
No.
He never hung out with us.
No.
He came with us one time for dinner. One time. And we were in your car,
yes,
which is a little car, and the windows were open, and Jack picked up your flashlight.
Jack picked up my flashlight, which I carried because we lived in Miami, although we never did see anyone gunned down in the streets. But it still was a little risky sometimes at night in parts of Miami. So I had a flashlight that also had chemical spray in it.
Little tube in the front of mace.
Right, little mace spray in there. And so there were 2 buttons on the flashlight. And the mace button had a safety on it so that it would show red if when you pushed that button it was going to spray. Well, I was at the light, and Jack, this is a traffic light, by the way, US Highway number 1, big busy
Dixie
street.
Highway,
Yep, Dixie Highway in Miami. We're waiting for the light to turn green. I look over, and Jack has picked up the flashlight. Okay, I looked again, and I saw the safety now was showing red. And he was looking right in to the flashlight. And then I saw his finger go down to the wrong button, and it was like one of these slow motion, no, like Star Trek, belay that phaser order, Star Trek the motion picture,
so
like that. Yeah.
You batted it away from his eyes.
Yes, I did manage to get it away, but it still went off.
We had a shot of mace inside a tiny little sedan.
And so it was like, ah, and everybody bailed out. The only problem was this was an automatic transmission car, so it began to creep out onto 6 lanes of Dixie Highway. So I had to jump in and throw it up into park and jump back out again, and we're all like, and Jack's like, what's going on? What is that? Oh man, it was, and then it was off to go find Visine for our eyes.
Oh man.
Oh, it was miserable. Yeah.
Jack Horkheimer was an interesting guy, and
brilliant.
And by the way, when I picked up Phil last night, I said, "Are there any existing copies of the soundtracks of some of his shows, and it turns out there might be. We know there's a soundtrack for his best show, because I want to get it and just play it for you guys, because it's just amazing. It's just amazing. Really genius guy. Brilliant writer when he wanted to be. And at the same time, he was an absolute lunatic. And when I'd started working there, I'd seen him kind of on the periphery, just kind of walking through, kind of storming through. And like I said, he kind of kept to himself. And he had long flowing hair, like long curly flowing hair down to his shoulders.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Absolutely right. Mm-hmm. 1973. And so finally, I'm kind of like part of the staff now, and we're sitting in this room, and in comes Jack Horkheimer, the Jack Horkheimer, author of Long Journey of a Young God and Child of the Universe. And he decided to come spend some time with the mortals. And he came into the room, and he sat down in the corner, on the floor, as I recall, and he reached up, and he pulled this long flowing hair out, and he was pretty much completely bald, and I about had a heart attack. I just couldn't believe it. It was like watching. You know how long it took for Darth Vader to take the helmet off? It's a complicated thing in Star Wars. It's like for me it was like a jump cut. Darth Vader, what? but he was so neurotic and so insane, and at the same time he gave me every single opportunity. He let me write shows when I was 15. Let me run shows when I was 14, and he was just a really weird guy. And he would do these. We would do these press previews. Jack would premiere a show, and he was super good socially. So he'd invite like the entire Miami press corps, and there would be a full house, 344 people in the dome, ready to go to see the new show. And Jack's got everything going, and everybody's there to see Jack. And meanwhile, Phil is in the back. He's still doing some of the last-minute dubs and putting some splices on the tape. I've got a script of how this thing is supposed to go. I'm hoping that the slides are in the right order, and I'm marking this thing, and all these people are coming in, and we're like, oh dear God, my God, we've been working for like 3 days, nonstop, day and night.
Yeah.
But we talked about this last night, so I am going to get a copy of Long Journey of a Young God, and if one for Child of the Universe, and I'll get one for Long Journey of a Young God. But it's really beautifully mixed, and it wasn't done on Pro Tools.
No.
I'll preface this story by one thing.
Okay.
When I picked him up and his lovely wife Bobby, who's here by the way, who I've known for about the same amount of time, when I picked him up, Phil said, I don't usually get to watch Stratosphere Lounge live. I'll watch it on tape. And I said, tape. Remember when we worked at the planetarium and the budget was so tight we had to reuse audio tape?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You can't do another dub. It's like it's coming from the bottom of the ocean. There's no high end left here. There's just nothing but hiss and bass. Can we please do another dub? Nope. Reel-to-reel tape is expensive. So that's what got me thinking about reel-to-reel tape. So then I find out something I didn't know, although I had seen something about it. So how did you put together the Child of the Universe soundtrack? Did you use a 16-track $700 an hour studio thing?
Yeah, that's right. It looks like just like the recording studios you see for the big-time artists. Yeah, no, not hardly. We had a picture. Let's get to the picture with the computer rack, because in the background you can see two Dynaco preamps.
Yep, hang on.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay, so up at the upper part of this screen, you can see two Dynaco preamps, stereo preamps, and two Sony tape decks. So and you can't see it, but off to the right was a turntable or two, depending on what we were doing.
A turntable is a musical playing device that you would use by putting an actual physical needle on the top of an actual record.
That's right, boys and girls.
That's right.
So what we would do is on tape deck number 1, we would have all of the narration. First thing we do is we record all the narration, clean all that up, splice it up, get it ready. Jack's got in his mind what he wants music to go behind these various segments, but he's not real sure. So we cue up a record, we start the record, bring some music up, fade it down, fade up the narration, blend that in, ride the levels while we listen to it. Finish that segment, bring the music back up for a little bit, fade it back down, cut. Rewind, listen to it, and Jack would say, I hate that. Off it goes into the trash can. We try again. So we would do that over and over again. Well, now, every now and then, Jack would get in his head that he wanted to crossfade between two pieces of music and still have the narration running in the background. So now we need 3 inputs, and so we had a little Sony mixer that we used to mix in the second turntable with the first turntable. And now we're trying to run audio narration on the top deck, and 2 turntables with music going, riding the level on all 3, and Jack's giving me like thumbs up, thumbs down, pointing to this, pointing to that, and it obviously took many takes to get it done. But you think, well, why the heck didn't you guys, get some? The reason we did it this way, we didn't know any better. We were just I see somebody saying Dynaco, yep. It's what we knew how to do. I mean, plus we had no money. I mean, we were a nonprofit organization, so we had no money. And it's what was available, and we just did it. We didn't know any better.
And Jack had in mind, he would say, all right, so when we get to this line, I want the cellos to come in. I want to time this thing like
right.
this.
Oh, now, yeah, we'd have to back.
So if I were doing it now, I would just say, okay, here come the beginning of the cellos. I move the cellos over to where the narration comes in. Then I roll the head of the thing back, and everything's perfect. But there was no digital technology, which meant that Phil would have. Phil would say, if it turns out that the cellos are 42 seconds in from this track, we would start the record playing, he'd hit the stopwatch, and he wouldn't fade the music up until he got to like 41 seconds.
Right.
And it was just, it actually sounded great.
And time it with the narration going on, yeah.
And some of these records that we used were so old. If you're old enough to remember LPs, you remember the record cleaning kits, you little, like a special liquid, and you have like little felt thing. Some of them were in such bad shape, we actually had to float the needle. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
We just put a liquid surface
over
it.
Oh, yeah, we drown them. Yeah, especially in Miami, the humidity gets stuff growing in the grooves. And you just can't get them really good and clean. I mean, sometimes we'd wash them in the sink right beforehand. It was dreadful. One of the great stories about that was working on Long Journey of a Young God. There's a sequence in there where the narrator goes through the Apollo missions, much more abbreviated than what Bill did for you. Just highlights of each of the missions. And we had talked about we need some music that has some movement to it. And so we wound up picking Aaron Copland's Billy the Kid for that.
He ended up.
If you know that piece of music, it's got it's got some steady rhythm to it.
Sunrise on the Prairie,
and that's Rodeo.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, so I thought, yeah, this would be good, and Jack and I talked about it, and so we mixed it, and we played it back, and Jack said, I don't like that. We're going to work on another one in the morning. It's too late. It's now like 1 o'clock in the morning, and of course we're like a couple of days out from a press preview probably. So I just spooled it off into the trash. I'd used this tape enough. That was enough on that one. So I just spooled it off into the trash can. Jack came in the morning. Now he was fresh again. He says, I want to hear that again. Hear what? But the Copland thing. I went, it's in the trash. Well, can you get it out? I went, well, I don't know. I'll give it a go. So, we pulled it out.
It wasn't the only thing in the trash.
Oh, no.
Trash. There's nothing but tape in there.
Yeah, there's all kinds of tape in there. So I managed to get it spooled up. I had to wind it back by hand with my finger on one reel and the tape coming gently through the other.
Because if you crink it, it's
so it doesn't
game
crink.
over.
Oh yeah. Because we had ridden the levels like crazy on this, bringing up, bringing down, swelling here. I thought it was really good, and I was really disappointed when Jack didn't like. Now Jack loved it. Now it was part of the show. So thank goodness it came out of the trash can intact.
That was Sally Jesse Raphael did the narration for that, wasn't it?
Sally
Jesse at the time.
Yeah, and
Bill Hyman.
And Bill Hyman was in that.
And Long Journey, and Leonard Nimoy was in that.
Leonard Nimoy was in Long Journey, that's right. That man put up with us. It was 1970, and he was working on trying to get out of the whole Spock thing. He was in Miami doing live theater. Jack found out about it, pulled some strings, got a hold of Nimoy, got him to come over, but he said, I won't do Spock. No, we just want your voice, He walked in the dome, and we're all giving him the Vulcan salute as he walks in the door.
This was probably about 2 months before I got there. Because I got there while that show was running, 2 or 3 months. And I'm like, he was here? Yeah, he stood right on this spot. Yes.
Oh, yeah. And he was wonderful to work with. And what a voice. He has broadcast quality voice. And if you've ever recorded people, you know what I mean. The VU meters come right up to the red, and they just sit there. And it sounds like the guy is getting louder and softer. But real broadcast people can hold those needles right there.
This is the way that I do on my shows.
It's exactly the way you do.
The perfect audio line.
You might say, oh, well, why didn't you use compression? We didn't know about compression, so we didn't do anything like that. No.
So we had a lot of time to kill, and we would find interesting ways to kill the time. Up at the front of the planetarium dome here, oh, by the way, here's your narrator.
Ah, there I am. Now, it's possible that I had a little bit of oily hair and oily face for that picture. I hope you can see that. I mean, you probably could have managed to get a pint of oil out of my hair and my face in that picture.
It's a true story. We were working, and my dad came to see a show. It was the only show he saw. And I remember it was like later that day, and I'm walking out, and one of the chairs was just covered in grease, you know, and I had to go wipe it down. And it turned out it was my dad's chair because it had all that Vitalis, you know. And this was before the dry look came out. Here's something. So we're basically looking for time to kill. So inside the planetarium, you've got this. These thumbnails are too small. That's the problem. I can't see what they are. Hang on. Bear with it. Here we go. Okay. So up in the front here. This is the view from the control console where I spent 20 years on and off.
Many an hour, yes.
Many an hour behind this. And by the way, I could still run shows right now. I could step into that thing if it existed, and no problem whatsoever. So up at the very front of this picture, you can see a couple of doors, and they let out. That's how people left the room. And around the outside was this circular aisle. And so we're looking for things to do to pass the time because Phil is, 23, 24. Doug is 24. I'm 14. And so we realized, hey, it'd be kind of cool because we had a strobe light that we used to simulate the rocket launch on Long Journey Beyond God. Because that's exactly what a Saturn V looks and sounds
exactly
like.
Like.
Tick, 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 tick,
yeah,
tick.
Yeah, that's right.
But what we found was that you could throw a Frisbee in when there's nobody in there, when there's no show going on. You could throw a Frisbee with the strobe on, and the Frisbee would go...
Dip, dip, dip.
Doink. And we also found that if you ran around that outside edge, if you ran around the outside aisle, the strobe light would give you the impression that you're standing still,
yes,
and that these panels are just like coming past you like that.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Bad acid trip.
Were you there the night that we rode bicycles around there?
No, I think I missed that one.
Yeah, that was good because we crashed. Yeah, it was not good. Doug and I both crashed. That's enough of that. Yeah.
So Doug was by far the best console operator there, and I really I worshipped the guy. I thought he was great, and before I became a console operator, I was an usher, and there's a scene it was a scene in Long Journey Beyond God, and Leonard Nimoy is talking. He's talking for like 5-6 minutes, and then finally he finishes the narration, and then you leave Stonehenge, and then you see the Earth zooming out. So Doug didn't like to waste time, so he knew that there were no more slides left in the show. So while Nimoy is talking, Doug just goes booting around the back, gets up the ladder with this horrible counterweight, this hatch, goes up between the aluminum dome and the outer concrete dome, and starts setting up the slide projectors for the next show because he wants to have some time off. Why not? So he's up there, and I'm down here by the console, and I can hear this music starting to wind down, and I know the show real well by now. And I'm thinking, we're getting pretty close here. We're really getting close. And now it's like, and then Nimoy says this final line, and blah, blah, blah. And the music fades out, and no sign of Dougie. None. But no sign of him, but there was a sound. And the sound was of leather heels on concrete. Up behind my head. And then you hear the sound of the creaking sound of the door, the pulling out on the hatch. And then dunk on the ladder. But he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it. And so Doug comes bursting out of the room, and he walks into the dome, and he sees, instead of seeing Stonehenge he sees Stonehenge is gone. There's the Earth. It's flying out exactly the way it's supposed to. And here I am just like turning around like,
hey, I got it for you, bud.
I just thought it was better than just letting it sit there, and that was fun. So Doug was just so good, and the Long Journey Beyond God was a tough show to run, but Horkheimer wrote, I think it's the best thing he ever did. He wrote a 7-minute piece. Phil talked about it earlier with the music. called the Apollo sequence. It was a retrospective of the Apollo program, and it was about 6-7 minutes, and there were lots and lots and lots of slides.
Oh.
So we had 2 slides in the center. We had projector 5 and 6 in the center, and those were our main images. And then off to the left, we had 1 and 2.
3, 4.
1 and 2 were big ones on the side, and then 3 and 4 were lower on the side.
Right.
And Jack, people are saying you look a lot like Nimoy, by the way. They've been saying that.
I see that.
Yeah, take off your glasses, they say. Take off your glasses, and they now say fascinating.
Wait a minute. The one eye, brother.
Fascinating.
Fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah, my voice doesn't go nearly low. Wait a minute. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the museum. Now I got my Leonard Nimoy voice. That's as low as it goes right there.
So anyway, Jack, it was a multimedia production. Remember that?
Yeah.
Not only was it a multimedia show, it was a multimedia show with quadraphonic sound.
That's right.
And we had a little orange switch down by the remote controls for the tape decks, and Jack, being the showman that he had, and not a whole lot of tools really when you get right down to it. No budget, no nothing.
No.
So he would set the show up, and we'd play it in stereo, and then there would come a moment when he would say, all right, now, kick in the quad.
Here it was.
Hit this button, all of a sudden now we get sound coming from all directions.
Yep.
So he's using all of these projectors, and he's really, really, really just doing amazing things. But the problem is there's no automation. It's all got to be done by hand. And so if we go back to our planetarium console picture, yeah. So down on the bottom left-hand corner, you can see four dimmer pots and then another 2 on the left-hand side. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in space, and then 5 and 6. Right in front of them are remote controls, tiny little levers, toggle switches to advance the slide, right? And that's how we
just like your dad's carousel projector watching slides of last year's visit to Aunt Martha's.
Exactly. So the show's going on in front of you. You're standing, looking to the left. The dials on the panel you see on the left are the actual controls for the star projector. In this particular moment, we're not doing too much with that right now. And we have to look at the script, at least in the beginning, which is on the panel in the center. That was like a red panel. You could turn it on at nighttime and it wouldn't blind you, and it wouldn't blind the audience. And so you would look down and you'd see the script. And you'd see the words on the script, and it would be Apollo 7, and 1 and 4 it would say, and then 5, 6, 5, 6. So when I got there, Doug was just nailing this thing, and it was really, it was a lot of timing, and a smooth dissolve, you would think is like a linear thing. It's not. The incoming projector has to come way up, and then the other one has to go down, and he's just making it look like just butter. So he was so good at it that in our abundant free time, we challenged Doug to. Somebody just said, "What about the blindfold story?" We challenged Doug to see if he could do the Apollo sequence in Long Journey of a Young God blindfolded. And being the sadistic bunch of bastards that we were, we wouldn't even allow him the dignity of walking into the console. I realized where this picture was. I thought it was the back doors. Those are the front doors. No,
this is the front. We had come all the way down the aisle.
We put him in the front doors. Now he has to go all the way across the thing and find the planetarium console. Okay, so there he is. He's wearing his authentic tie blindfold. Yeah. And then, he found his way to the console. We had queued up the Apollo sequence, so it was ready to go. And we had the soundtrack ready to go.
Yep.
And Doug is standing there like this, like Yoda, can't see a thing. We kill the lights and we start the soundtrack, and all of a sudden he's just like a robot. He's not looking. He's like he's like an actor playing a blind person.
Yep.
Whenever you see a person who can see playing a blind person, they're always doing this, staring at one spot out in space. And he's down here and he's moving all these things, and we're looking at this stuff, and it's like, oh man, it's just like it's perfect. It's like that. And then he's got to like fly planet and moon and everything.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the zoom.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and all of this stuff, and it's perfect. And we're sitting there going, I think we lost our bet. And then the final thing that you had to do, was next to final thing you had to do, there was a projector, on projector 3, there was a picture of the moon, and using the little pointer, which was just a flashlight with a cord, you had to.
But it made a tiny little arrow image, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what the console operator had to do was you had to point out Tycho, the crater.
The crater Tycho, yeah.
So we say, well, we'll get him when he gets to Tycho.
Oh, yeah. Well, he won't hit the moon. Forget Tycho. He won't hit the moon.
So we're sitting here, and he's doing all this stuff perfectly blindfolded, moving all this stuff in the star projector. Reaches down with this thing. It's a long, like a wand kind of thing. And he reaches down, and he just goes like this. Tink. And he put the center of that arrow
right into Tycho.
On that mountain in the center of Tycho.
Yep.
And we called it then, didn't we? So
yeah,
that's it. We're done.
That's it. You got your free dinner.
That's it. We're done. And it was so much fun. We had so much fun.
Can we bring back the picture for a second?
Absolutely.
You were talking about the quad sound in the background behind Doug there. You can see the at the console.
Oh, sorry.
Blindfolded. You can see the sticker up on the door there because we wanted to make sure people knew we were using Altec Lansing Voice of the Theater speakers. Those were renowned in the early 70s as the most natural sounding speakers. 15-inch woofer, big horn tweeters on them, and they had just very realistic sound. They weren't like boomy bass amazing, but they were very realistic, and we were very proud of our Voice of the Theater speakers. Hold
the phone, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, wait, now.
I'm serious. Marusha Dark has been like, she's just fairly recent to the lounge, but she has been like a most valuable player.
Holy
and she has found Long Journey of the Young God Planetarium soundtrack on the internet. So here's what I'm going to do. I can't load it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it through the speakers here. So it's going to sound like garbage, but I want to play just a little bit of the Apollo sequence so people can figure out what we're talking about.
I like it. With the blast shield down, I can't even see. Big Booty says, yeah.
Marusha,
holy moly. I like it. With the blast shield down, I can't even see. Big Booty says, yeah.
Marusha, who's talking? Oh, that's us.
Holy moly.
Hang on. So who's talking? Oh, that's us. Hang on. So oh, that's us. This is turning into a giant. Hold on. We'll get there. This is turning into a giant. Sorry, I actually, honestly, had no idea what was going on there, as usual. So before we get to the actual show, why are we playing the theme music from the Music Camelot in a walk-in for a show about the Apollo program?
Well, Jack, being the master that he was, would weave in the darndest things into the shows. We would you got to go back in time now. Grab the H.G. Wells time machine and pull the lever back to 1973 here. When you went to a planetarium in those days, it was like, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to show you the night sky tonight.
We saw that when we went to the Hayden Planetarium in New York. Or no, it was in Atlanta, wasn't it? J.D.W. Stahl and an enormous Zeiss machine that was like 6 times the mass of our machine, and put our stars look like stars, and the Zeiss machine just put a bigger circle and smaller circles. And I remember J.D.W. Stahl would say, like, and over here we can see the constellation Orion. Mit the star on the shoulder.
The stars, yeah.
So this was what a planetarium show was. Here's a star, and here's another star. And if you connect these stars, you can see
the outline
of a swan.
Yeah, whatever it might be.
And all of a sudden, Horkheimer comes out with like these multimedia narrated shows. But like Phil was saying, he was able to tie things together. And what he did for the Apollo program was he tied it into Camelot. He basically said, and nobody, how prescient he was, right? I mean, now for the last 5 years or so, I've been saying I think the Apollo was the high point of human history.
Right.
He was calling Apollo the high point of human history 4 months after Apollo ended,
and likened it to myths.
Right. So and we had a segment where there was who was the guy who wrote the myth of the journey of the hero.
It'll come along in 8 seconds, like you're always telling us.
That's right. The journey, the hero with 1,000 faces. Yeah. So he's doing a discussion on all this. Yeah. So the close of the show is Leonard Nimoy comes and visits Earth, and there's nothing left but a time capsule inside Stonehenge, which we accomplished by putting up a series of slides with Stonehenge, and then Phil cut a shape the size of a contact capsule, and then we use polarized light behind it.
Right.
And it glowed.
Shimmering glow. Yeah.
Joseph Campbell, thank you. Oh, I glowed. So here's the time capsule talking, and Nimoy is reading it, and basically life on Earth is gone. There's no more humans left. And this time capsule was left in Stonehenge saying that there was a time when gods walked the earth and man went to the moon.
Right.
And then the show ends with the theme from Camelot.
Right. It was to tie in that whole mythology.
And Kennedy, of course, in the 1,000 Days in Camelot.
Yep.
So that's why people are listening to It's May, the lovely month. What's going on here? What are we doing?
Right.
Well, for Child of the Universe, which was about perspective, the walk-in music was Lotte Lenya and Kurt Weill from 1927 Berlin cabarets.
Three-penny opera, yeah.
And I got exposed to all this stuff. I think I have a lawsuit, but we'll see. So Marisha, I can't tell you how happy I am that you found this. So this time I'm going to be doing a little better. I'm going to turn the mic off so we don't get the feedback, and I'm going to see if I can get us up to the Apollo sequence, and I'll play that in its entirety. So mic's going off, and then I'll turn it back on when we get... No, the mic's staying on, sorry. No, the mic's going off. Shut up. Hey, just bear with us, because I know where it is in the show, and just bear with us.
Possibly reach the moon in such a short time. America hadn't even launched her first breakthrough-sized satellite. According to the essay, manned missiles would operate in the threshold area up to 100 miles.
Hang on.
Manned missiles are satellites operating at a greater distance.
How do I solve this problem?
Unmanned flights to the moon.
We've got the broadcast sound on as
Right.
well as the delay sound.
Human beings themselves would be put into satellites for Earth orbit missions.
Right.
Later,
I know what
space
I'm sorry.
platforms would be built, and
I know what I have to do.
A moon rocket would be assembled above the Earth in anticipation of a future journey. Later,
How do I solve this?
around the moon might be possible.
I know what
sometime
I know
in
what
the decade 1980 to 1990.
We got to get rid of the 8-second delay sound.
Just before the year 2000, Earthlings would walk on the world for the first time.
Because the sound is coming from the speakers, I can't turn the speakers down. Child of the Universe. Because the sound is coming from the speakers. So look, we obviously have a small problem here. We got a small problem. Since I'm playing the stuff back from the sound speakers, I know how we can do it. I'm sorry. So bear with us. This is an unexpected technical issue. What I need to do is turn off the sound from the feed. Hang on, Strata Loungers.
Fortunately, we had our engine failure at 30,000 feet, so
Yes,
we're
so-
still gliding while we try to restart the engines.
All right, now we should be good. Okay, so we got levels here. Yes, all right, we got it solved.
National chauvinism.
Why climb the highest mountain? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon.
When John F. Kennedy gave his moon message on May 25th, 1961, committing America to putting a man on the moon by the end of the decade, why didn't national protest echo throughout the press instead of national pride?
Because that's the
Did we want the rhetoric of the Kennedy timetable? Or perhaps more importantly, did we need
Because
it?
that challenge is one that we're willing to accept,
Need it?
one we are unwilling to postpone.
Let's
and one
explore
we
that
prefer
possibility
winning
later.
from the other two.
But for now, let's capsulize the mission itself from the perspective of history
Here it comes.
and see how much we remember.
And there's your Copeland.
Apollo 1, a tragic beginning. Hope's gone up in smoke and flame. White, chaffy grissom. The end of pioneers in the program. A setback in morale and hopes. A blow to national chauvinism.
I haven't heard this for 40
The next
years.
5 Apollos would run unmanned. Apollo 7, Isley Cunningham Schirra. October 11th, 1968. 11 days in orbit, 4.5 million miles of flying. Americans regained their confidence as their spacemen performed with a sense of humor on the first live telecast from outer space. Keep those cards and letters coming in, beamed back. And
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Christmas Eve, 1968. Millions of astonished people sat in front of their television sets and for the first time realized what an awe-inspiring thing they had helped to create. Cecil B. DeMille couldn't have staged it more effectively. The human spirit had traversed 240,000 miles across space and mixed nationalism up with awe of the smallness of the planet man calls his own. Anders Lovell Borman. We had proved we would be able to do it. March 7,
Here comes your cameo.
1969, McDivitt, Scott, Schweikert. The first testing of the spider-legged LEM. It worked. Apollo 10, young Stafford Cernan, now held the distinction of flying closer to the moon than man had ever been before. And another first in space. Scientific experiment, Sugar, Hotel, Alpha, Victor, Echo, shave. On previous flights, astronauts avoided shaving for fear that clipped whiskers might float about in the weightless cabin and be irritating. But Apollo 10's crew couldn't itch any more than it already was, after some fiberglass insulation accidentally broke free and floated through the cabin. They landed without beards. And what can anyone say about Apollo 11? Everything seemed to stop around the world, and eyes from one corner of the globe to the other watched one of the most unbelievable sights ever. No single event in history was seen and hailed by more people than this. The Earth shone in the distance, and the realization that someone was looking back on the whole of humanity staggered the imagination. It was reality, but it was a mystical experience. And then the hard work began. Apollo 12. Beam, Gordon, Conrad set up a scientific station on the moon in the start of a venture to pry secrets from our 4.5 billion-year-old sister. As Conrad stepped from the Intrepid, he remarked, "That may have been a small one for Neo, but it was a big one for me." It's been said that historians will probably reflect that Conrad acted more like a child in a sandbox for his first time. And then 13, confirming what the superstitious believed. The craft with its lunar module Aquarius was in trouble. An oxygen tank in the command module had been ripped away. No one knew if they could make it back in time. And when it looked as if they couldn't, Lovell switched on his teeny tape recorder, and strains of the age of Aquarius drifted back to Earth.
And there's the Copeland.
Back at Mission Control, a young engineer turned his face away from the man next to him and put his hands over his eyes, hiding the tears. "That's beautiful," he told his friend. "Just beautiful." And then 14. Rocks, almost as old as the solar system itself, were brought back home, and communication between Earth and Moon reached a new technological peak. But most important, 14's moon samples virtually eliminated any last hope that some form of life, however primitive, might eventually be found on the moon.
And it's just building, man. It's just
15,
building.
called the most significant scientific expedition ever mounted, saw a lunar Model T gambling across our sister of the night. At one point, when various parts of the rover became a bit temperamental, even to the point of a fender falling off, it seemed that perhaps a letter to Ralph Nader might be the most expedient thing to do. Nevertheless, the mission accomplished its purpose. Crystalline rocks were what they came for, and crystalline rocks were what they got. Apollo 16, all set to explore ancient volcanoes and billion-year-old lava flows. NASA and its moon crew were more than a little surprised as the returns came in. Virgin mountains, no volcanoes, no volcanic rocks, no lava flows, and disturbingly, puzzling eruptions never heard before echoed back to worried ground control. What could the blasts mean? Could they be a serious threat to the astronauts? Finally, from inside the airtight telephone booth-sized lunar lander Orion came the answer.
We got the parts again, Charlie.
A rather tasteless tale, perhaps, but it proved one thing. Those creatures stalking the moon were definitely human. Scientific scrutiny turned up the culprit, however. Too much potassium in the tank. Dubbed the most successful of all the previous flights by some, its cache is still under scrutiny. So successful was it, as a matter of fact, that Young, upon Earth return, stated publicly, "I think we taxpayers, got our money's worth on this one." And then
Okay, I'm just pausing for a second. Listen to how this music builds, and it's just timed by this guy, and the end of this is just magical.
And it went in the trash can.
And it went in the trash can, then it came back out again. Now it's on the
On
internet.
that warm December Florida evening, the first night launch created a scene that shook the senses of even the most jaded. Into the heavens it went, with an ear-shattering roar, its fiery brilliance turning midnight into high noon. A sight so awesome and overpowering that spectators gaped, mouths open in disbelief at what their eyes told them to be true. Speechless, tears streaking down the faces of many, wordless goodbyes followed the golden trail of Apollo 17 as it climbed hundreds of miles above the Earth in view of all. Good luck, Godspeed, and silent farewells to the end of an era.
Yeah, it's making us both cry. We haven't heard it in 40 years or something. But not only is it good writing, it was unheard of. People would go to a planetarium show and they'd say, "Oh, we're going to take the kids so they can see what a star looks like." You can see nothing in Miami anyway, and they get this experience, and now we're hearing, we're putting all these pieces together, and it was a masterpiece.
He was.
And
he was amazing.
He really was. And turns out there's a bunch of them uploaded here. Marusha, I cannot thank you enough. 1,400 Light Years Beyond. I don't remember Walk on Mars. Child of the Universe is his all-time classic. Buck Rogers' Right On, which is the show where I did the RPY that we talked about at the beginning, and Night of the Red Moon.
Yep.
So Jack Horkheimer would write about a lunar eclipse. He'd call it Night of the Red Moon, and he'd start off with Cat Stevens singing Moonshadow. And that's how these planetarium shows ran, and that's why the press just kept coming.
Yep.
The problem is not that the press kept coming. The problem is that the press kept coming while we're still working on the show. I'm sleeping on the floor. We've been up for 3 days, and I'm sleeping on the carpet on the floor. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Phil's working on something. Somebody else is working on something else. The guys in the back are. Do you remember how horrible it was to have to opaque codolith?
Oh yeah. I was just getting ready to say one of the things that we did when you want to put stuff up on the screen and you don't want it to look like Dad's vacation pictures with a big rectangular outline, is we would opaque out parts of the picture.
So just real quick. So you'd have a slide, and if you just put the slide up, even if it was a moon against a black background, the black background would be, you'd see the square of the projector.
Right.
So we had to, by hand, with a tiny little brush, we had to get this orange opaque, like clay almost, and we had to paint all the way around these things.
35 millimeter slides.
Yep.
We're talking
and then
tiny
we had
little
to
slides.
opaque. And some of the stuff was so bad, we just had to. It was no Photoshop.
No.
So we had to go in there with. Oh, God, mess it up.
Two tape decks and opaquing fluid.
Yep,
That's us.
That's us. But it worked, and it was great. It was great.
Yep. Oh yeah. Doug, Bill Dishon. Bill Dishon did a lot of the slide preparation work. Herb did some. It was. And of course Jack, being the type personality that he was, only really worked well under pressure.
That's right. The reason the shows were never ready was because if there wasn't a deadline, he wouldn't finish them.
That's
and
right.
I can relate to that.
Yep. Because we'd have meetings. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. We had an artist on staff, Noreen, and she would do some of the paintings that we might need for stuff. We were busy garnering up photos. There was no internet to go look on, so we were getting pictures out of magazines, out of
National
NASA
Geographic,
publications.
lay it flat.
Yep. Went on the copy stand, and then Jack would say, "Okay, no, I don't want that one. I want another one." And no, and finally it was like, "Okay, we got to stop making changes. We got to make the show. We're now 7 days out. We got to start making the show. Now we're 4 days out, and we're still trying to figure it out."
Now we're 2 days out, and we've just recorded the narration, and Phil's in the back working with Jack. He's got these 2 turntables, floating these needles, trying to time these cues. Horkheimer's like, okay, wait, now, hold, now. And then the narration, and Bill Hyman would go, no, that's good. And Phil's just doing all this stuff live. Meanwhile, I'm out doing some other thing, mounting slide projectors and stuff, and by the time the press comes in, he had a big party, and that that was a popular place. There were 344 seats in there, and it was full all the time. But on the press preview, it was full with like every single celebrity in Miami. That's a pretty low bar to clear, actually. And so you got all of these influential writers there, and Horkheimer's being the social butterfly that he is, just charming. He's out there in the lobby, and then he makes his announcement, and he's making his announcement, and he's going a little long, and he's going long because I'm still marking the freaking script because I have to run this thing, and I've never seen it before, never. And
not all the way through. We've seen bits and pieces,
but I've never run it before.
Right.
Because at least on 1 or 2 of them, the tape wasn't ready. You're still splicing tape.
We were running walk-in music, and I was in the back room still splicing up the show tape.
And there's a whole crowd full of people, and there I am, 14, 15 years old, and now I'm looking at a script, and I've put pencil marks around words 5, 6, 5, 6, and now I'm going to have to step in here. And I'm going to have to do this thing live. I don't know how long the cues are musically. I don't know any of this stuff. And you have to do it sideways because the script is on that rear lit little panel here, and all your slide projectors over here. So you're doing this kind of thing, moving up and down. You're like the Phantom of the Opera, on the keyboard, over here, good. And to this day, I can just remember doing this.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. Yeah. So it would be 6, advance 5, 5, advance 6, 6, advance 5, and if you didn't do it, then when you brought up the next cue, there's the old slide, and people go, he made a mistake.
That's right. Then you decide, like, do I quick take it down and oh no, leave it up. They'll just think, they must have wanted to go back to that image. Yeah, that's right. Then when it went down, it's chicka, you double advance it. Yeah. Trying to cover your mistake.
Speaking of double advance, I don't want to forget what I was talking about, but I just did. So remind me to talk about the what was it called? The Munoz?
The Munoz.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Horkheimer's back there, and now he's how would you describe him while the show is running? I'm nervous when if I run a TV show and it's in the can. I remember when I showed the first movie I made on the lawn at the University of Florida. It was a comedy called The Pigeonhole, 16mm film. And we screened this thing in front of a couple hundred students. And when this thing was running, there was a joke there. And I remember thinking, no, man, not even a titter, nothing. I'm looking around and going, what the hell happened to me? How could that? And that's what was going on in my head. And then this laugh comes. And I realize I'm going so fast, So Horkheimer, who was always a little bit like yappy, like a Yorkshire Terrier under normal circumstances.
Good point. Yep. Good description.
And he had the same kind of hair, except it was plastic. But when the actual show was running and the chips were on the table and all the press is there and everything counts and I've got to concentrate. When that happened, he would just go absolutely silent and let me do my job.
Yep.
No, just kidding. That's nothing like what he did. He would stand behind me and he would go, okay, now, slower. Okay, good. No. Do it now. So a little faster on the zoom, good.
And of course, it's really coming around from both sides.
Yeah, and I'm trying to do all this stuff, and I'm trying to read, and he's yelling in my ear. And he's yelling, and people could hear him yelling, And I did a bunch of these things, probably did at least 6 or 7 of the press previews. And I don't remember which one it was. It wasn't the first one because I didn't have the guts yet or the experience. But after my 4th or 5th one, and he's doing this, and he's just all over the place. And I turned to him in the middle of the show. I said, either you leave or I'm leaving, because I can't do this.
You can't do
way.
this. Yeah.
And then you left. And then it got easy. It was easy after that. Then I could just run the show and have to deal with this lunatic.
Yeah.
But again, he was a lunatic, but he was a lunatic who knew what he wanted, and he had something. He had a real vision, and he was a lunatic because he wanted that to happen, and that was something that had to be done manually. Yep. 4 times a day, 5 times a day, and you got a good show or a bad show depending on who was
at the console. Yeah.
So Doug was the absolute ascended master, and I just had my sights on him from the beginning. I just said, I am going to be better than this guy if it kills me, and I was. It definitely was. I was definitely better than him. When I was on my game, I ran a better show than Doug did, which is saying something.
Yeah,
Phil's looking suspiciously, but I'm telling you, I remember the that was actually better.
Although we never blindfolded you.
No, we never blindfolded me. Yeah. But we did do other things to me.
Oh, we did, yes.
So tell them about the Southern Cross Observatory, located in the heart of downtown Miami, where occasionally you could see a first magnitude star in the sky.
So
tell them about how you found that. Actually, that was really fun.
All this planetarium stuff came about because Doug and I were college students at the University of Miami. Doug was a physics major, I was an electrical engineering major. And we found each other in physics class together. It was a requirement for me and, of course, one of his core classes, and we just bumped into each other, sitting next to each other, study partners, and it took off from there. Well, time goes on, we needed another class, and we both signed up for an astronomy class. Took the class, it was wonderful, great professor, Dr. Duke, and we got the bug to have a telescope. Well, we have no money. So all we could do was scrape together about $40 and send to Edmund Scientific Company and get a kit for making a 6-inch telescope mirror. So
it's a round disc of glass.
What they said, they send you 2 pieces of glass, flat glass, and a whole bunch of different abrasives. And you put one of them on a bench, and you take the other one and you put the strongest grit on the put your hands up here. Strongest grit on the 2 pieces of glass, and you push back, forth, back, forth. Then you walk about 10 degrees around the table, back, forth, and you walk at about 10 degrees. And this goes on for many, many, many hours. And through some miracle, this makes a very good parabolic shape in the glass, so that it does its magic
Newtonian reflector thing. Yeah,
Newtonian reflector thing. So we had made it to the point where when we put water on it and we looked, we could see that it was no longer flat, and you could kind of back away and try to get an idea where the image suddenly burp would invert, and that's where you're now near the focal length of the glass. But we couldn't get it exactly, so we talked to our professor, and he said, yeah, in the lab, the physics lab, we could probably include something. But why don't you go down to the Museum of Science? They've got an astronomy club down there, and they do a bunch of work, and they even have grinding classes there. Okay, so we went down there, and we found out they were open on Monday nights in the observatory. They had a 3-bay observatory, flat roof, roll these roofs back, no fancy dome kind of stuff. This was like everything else. This was done on a budget.
And you had to go up the staircase past the saber-toothed tiger or whatever it was down at the bottom there.
Yeah. And climb on up to the roof, and we met these crusty old guys up there, and they said, yeah. We can break out that stuff. We don't have a class going right now, but maybe next weekend, maybe blah blah blah. But so you guys, 6-inch, yeah, that's nice. So they kind of looked at each other and they went, what do you guys think about these telescopes? And there's like an 8-inch telescope, a 10-inch brochure, if you know that name. It's like it's like the holy grail of small telescopes back in that time. Couple of Alvin Clark refractors, again, holy grail kind of stuff. And our eyes were like, we were just amazed at what we were seeing. And they said, if you guys join the club and sign up to do a public night, you'll get keys and you can just use these instruments. And we were like, oh yeah. Well, later with that telescope that we're building, we'll use these babies. Well, then they kind of looked at each other, sheep, and said, we'd really like to open on Friday nights. And I'm sure they're thinking, college guys, Friday night.
Couple swinging bachelors like yourself. You're probably busy out with all the girls on Friday night.
You folks have seen the picture. You know what we look like. Women ran from us.
They did.
We had no social life. Sure, Friday night's no problem.
Yeah.
So we started working in the observatory.
For 2 decades.
And then, I thought you were my friend. And so then, it's easy to get the train off the track here. Be careful now. And so then, a couple of people left the staff at the planetarium. They need some guys to run shows. Hey, how would you guys like to run a planetarium show? We'd been down to see the shows. Sure. Pay you $10 a show that you run. This is like huge money to us. But they only gave us afternoon shows where there'd be like a dozen people in there. So if we screwed up, it wouldn't be too bad. And we ran shows for a while. And we got better at it. And then the technician left. And I was the double E major. So I knew a lot of the electronic stuff. And I went, yeah, I'll take that job. Sure. So then it was like full-time job, part-time college till I finished my degree. And then Doug got on full-time, and that's how we came to be working at the planetarium when Bill came along and showed up. But yeah, it was
like a lint trap for nerds, for scientific nerds, It's just everything is tumbling around, and then certain people would get caught there. So we're up on this observatory on the roof of the museum. It's not the planetarium now. We're up on the observatory, and we open on Friday and Saturday nights for 3 or 4 hours and show people stuff through the telescopes. And a lot of times there'd be 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 people up there, and a lot of times there'd be nobody up there except for us junior astronomers of the Southern Cross Astronomical Society. And so we had nothing to listen to, but we had the radio, and we tuned the radio to the national time signal.
Yes.
And it would be at the tone, 16 hours, 42 minutes, coordinated universal time. Boop. And then we'd wait till it became 16 hours, 43 minutes, coordinated
universal time.
And it's just running in the background.
And there actually was a reason for it on very rare occasions if you were trying to time anything that was going on, like a star moving through the field of the telescope. You would do that to make some measurements, or the rare case where there'd be a transit where you could actually see something, where timing was really important. But mostly it was just there because we used it once in a blue moon. And the rest of the time, when people came up to the observatory, it sounded cool. It sounded like this is a place where they're doing stuff.
Serious scientists here, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, you can believe the science because we're scientists. That's right.
So last time I saw Phil was about 7 years ago at his home back in North Carolina, and he reminded me of something that I'd forgotten. We were only there at the same time for like a little over a year, right? When did you leave?
In the planetarium, that's true. I left the planetarium in '74, but I continued to volunteer at the observatory up until the early '80s.
Okay, so we would go there, and we'd get there, before dark, and we didn't have domes; they just had flat roofs. You had to roll them back, and it took a little rolling. And so we're up there, and it's dusk, and we're rolling these things back, and just the first stars are starting to come out. Just the brightest stars, first magnitude stars, 0 magnitude stars, and so I'm looking around, and okay, well, there's Arcturus, and here's Spica, and who's that? And let's say it was a southern. Let's say it was the Winter Triangle, because I remember more of those stars.
Sure.
Okay, so there's Vega, there's Deneb, there's Altair, great, and what's that?
That star doesn't belong in that triangle.
That doesn't belong there. And I looked up, and
you called it out.
I did. I said, "Hey guys, what's that?" And you said
it's probably a plane.
No, it's not a plane. It's not moving. It's not a plane. It's a star.
It'll move.
And then we must be disoriented because it's not fully dark yet.
Right.
It's like, no, man, there's a summer triangle, the Vega, Deneb, and Altair, and that star
doesn't belong there. So we had this pair of World War something, I guess World War II, German binoculars from a submarine.
Huge Zeiss.
Big Zeiss.
From a submarine, they're from a U-boat, yeah. And they were mounted on this steel pole.
Yep, and we broke those things out because it was the fastest thing to get onto that, to prove to Bill that it was a plane.
Yeah.
And we're looking through this thing, and I was like, damn, that thing's not moving. And it's twinkling. If it twinkles, it's a star. If it's steady, it's a planet or something else. But if it has got that scintillation to it, that's a fancy word for twinkling, then it's a star because there's a point of light coming. Never mind. Physics involved. But that says it's a star. So we're like, holy mackerel. And Bill's looking in there. well, what do we do now? What do we do now? You know, it's kind of like you caught up to it. Now, what do you do with it? So
we called Art Smith, who was kind of like an eminence grease, right? He was a guy who'd been there for 100 years, built radio stations in the jungle in Bolivia, you know, Indiana Jones.
Yeah. And
he knew enough about what to do, so he called. Who did he call?
We called Art, and Art said, here's the number, call the Smithsonian Observatory, and put in your findings. Because there was a number that you call when you saw something in the sky. So we called. Of course, it was dark, so they weren't answering the phone, but we got the beep, you know, leave your message, kind of old-fashioned machine. And we told them what we saw.
You made the call. I don't remember hearing it or seeing it.
Yeah, I made the call, and that was it. You know,
you gave him the time too.
We gave him, of course, yeah. I mean, and beep, tick, tick. We had our time, by golly. So we made the call, and we found out the next day or the day later that we were the second call, I think, from the United States. Somebody in Maine beat us because they were further east. And there had been, unfortunately, a number of calls from Western Europe because this thing lit up at that time where it was just setting for Western Europe. It was coming up for us and just getting dark enough. So Bill was actually one of a handful of people to first see this thing.
As the second guy in the Western Hemisphere.
Had we been the first, we could have named it, and it could have been Nova Whittle.
If you'd known who to call without having called Art Smith, we might have beat that guy's call in.
We might have, but still the Europeans.
And it was, well, that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
But never, I remember that. It was like, and I'd completely forgotten that story. You told me about it when we saw each other last, and thought, that's actually kind of impressive in a way, you know?
It was probably the coolest thing we ever did in the observatory.
Yeah.
That was cool. And the other thing that was cool was we had an even younger astronomy fellow that would occasionally show up with his dad, Bobby. I don't remember Bobby's last name right now. And one night we had a telescope pointed to Mars, and you had to go up a step ladder because it's a big Newtonian there in my hands, big Newtonian telescope to get up there. And this guy was hogging the mouth to the eyepiece, you know, just kept looking. So finally Bobby says, "It ain't gonna get any redder, mister. We got people in line." So yeah, we did. All right, so now
we would show people Saturn in a 12-inch reflector or whatever, and people were utterly convinced that we put a slide in there.
Oh yeah, they'd go up there. You got a flashlight? I want to see. You know, they'd want to look up at the other end of the telescope.
So now we'll tell the ultimate story, and then we'll go take some questions from Facebook.
I got to talk about cool lights.
Okay,
you had that in mind?
No.
So sometimes it'd be cloudy and we'd get bored. So what did we do? We flew kites off of the up there, off of the observatory. We did other crazy things we won't talk about.
No, we will talk about them.
But wait. Go. So one night we said, hey, you know, the crack open chemical lights were brand new, cool light things. We said, I bet we've got enough lift. We could tie one onto the string and run it out over the parking lot and then go downstairs and see what it looks like. And it looked really cool, and you couldn't really tell what it was. So then we got the idea, when the planetarium show breaks and the people come out, we'll send a shill down to the parking lot to look up in the sky and get people to be amazed.
What's that?
Exactly. So we'd float the cool light out, get it just where we needed off the kite, and it was up high enough you couldn't see the string. And then we'd send somebody down, and they'd stare. And at least half of the people would walk right by and not ever look up. About another quarter would look up and look right down and head on out. But every now and then we'd get somebody that was like, what in the world is that? I've never seen anything green up in the sky like that. So that was pretty fun. And now you were going to say.
Well, it reminded me of a story. That was the kind of thing where you broke the glass thing on the inside and the two chemicals mixed in it,
right,
and it glowed. But when I was a boy, they had something called lightning bug glow juice, and it was exactly like suntan lotion, except it was the kind of phosphorescent stuff that you could charge with a light.
Yes.
And so we put this all over our face, and we'd stand in front of this light for a while, and just like, it probably only took like 2 minutes, but we did like half an hour because it'd be even brighter that way. And then when we turned off the light, we went into my cousin's room and tapped him on the shoulder, and he turns around, you see these three glowing green faces. They took it off the market. Undoubtedly, it was extremely carcinogenic.
I think Prop 65
yeah,
proved
yeah. So the other thing we did up there, which was the coolest thing I think I've ever seen, certainly the coolest thing I ever built.
Oh no!
Oh yeah.
We're gonna go to jail.
No, the statute of limitations has expired.
All right.
So, did you design that? Who came up with the idea for it? You and Doug together?
You sure we're not going to go to jail?
No, we're not going.
I think Eric. Had the original idea.
So here's the deal. So these guys figured out how to make a hot air balloon, and here's what you needed to make a hot air balloon. You needed candles from a birthday cake. You needed a razor blade. You needed plastic drinking straws. You needed Scotch tape. And you needed a dry cleaning bag, and it had to be a dry cleaning bag. It could not be a trash bag.
No, way too heavy.
Way too heavy. So what you would do is you would take the straws, and you crimp one end and stick one end into the other, and then tape that around till you got something about that wide.
At least 2 straws,
Right,
sometimes 3.
And then you do it again, and then you put that in the middle. So now you've got an X like this with 2 arms. And you tape that up. And then you go down the top of this thing with your razor blade and make a couple little marks, like four or 5 down each one of these arms, right? And then you tape each one of the 4 corners to the
bag.
dry cleaning bag. Before you do that, you put a candle in each one of those slots on the straws, and then you light the candles.
Yes.
And then you just let it go, and it just goes. It just goes and goes and goes.
Mostly that's true. Sometimes it doesn't just go and go and go.
Remember the flames that were dropping out of that thing?
Sometimes when it burned down to the straws, you'd see, and again the German binoculars would come out and we'd watch burning plastic falling from the sky.
Yeah, we're doing to Miami what the Japanese and the Nazis were trying to do for like a decade. We're raining fire down on an American city.
So one night it was really humid, and the thing went up. Went up and went out over these houses near the museum, and it settled down right on a flat roof of somebody's house.
I think we ran indoors.
But that's not the worst. The absolute worst, I can't believe I'm telling this story now. The absolute worst was we launched one. It was a really humid night, and we were right near where I-95 meets US 1.
Right, it's where US 1 turns into I-95.
And it went right out over I-95, and then it started to settle, and we went, oh, no, come on, baby, come on, keep flying, because they would fly better as they burned off the wax, and they got lighter, but not tonight. And it went down, and we could see traffic from the roof, but in between were these big, huge trees.
Palmetto trees or something, some kind of trees.
Yeah, some kind of trees, big trees.
Grape leaf, whatever.
Big trees for Miami, anyway.
Yeah.
And we saw this balloon settling down over here, over to our right, and then we lost sight of it. And about a second later, it came out
on the grill of a car,
on the antenna on somebody's car. And you can imagine what happened. Some poor guy is going down I-95.
And this thing lands on his car, this flaming catastrophe. And John Persing wins the internet. He says, and this is the real story behind the Great Miami Fire of 1974.
I thought we weren't going to tell that story.
No.
Oh,
they were talking about, they would just give me a lot of grief, and we all gave each other grief. It wasn't a one-way street. Mostly one-way street. It was a one-way street 23 hours out of the day, but we just had a lot of fun. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I was so competitive, but I used to do challenges. I was just like, I bet you. I'm not a gambling man. I'll do the prelude. We were up at the observatory one night, and this guy was not really a regular. We were talking about German tanks from World War II.
Yep.
And I'd built every model that was ever made, ever. And I knew my German tanks from World War II. And if I get this wrong now, forgive me, I'm pretty sure I got it right, but I certainly got it right back then. So this guy was saying that the Panther tank was the Panzerkampfwagen 4, and I said, no, the Panther was the Panzerkampfwagen 5.
Yeah.
And we got into a big old argument about it. And he was working was he an electrician or something?
He was an electrician, yeah.
I don't know what he's making. He's probably making $8 an hour or something like that. I'm working as an usher. I'm making $2 an hour. And this thing is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And I think he said it because I don't think it would have occurred to me. He said, I will bet you my next paycheck against your next paycheck that the Panther is a Panzerkampfwagen 4. And I said, yeah, okay. I did it instantly. I was 100% certain I was right. So I come in the next time he's there, and I bring the model cover, the cardboard box, and it says, Panther tank. Here's the Panther. Panzerkampfwagen 5. And
he reneged.
He didn't pay.
He didn't pay. Nope.
That was the second coolest bet. The coolest bet was we would go to New Hickory
New Hickory Barbecue
on Coral Way.
Coral Way.
Yep, right across from the Twin Gables Theater, and we went there all the time. And they had a lot of good stuff, but they had absolutely delicious coleslaw. It was like sweet. It was just creamy, sweet. Excellent, excellent. And we would go there all the time, and I'm just loving this coleslaw. It's great. And we were sitting there one night, and I turned to these guys and said, I bet I could eat a gallon of this stuff.
This coleslaw is so good, I could eat a gallon of it.
And so they said, okay, you're on.
Well, actually, I tried. I really did. I tried to help you. I said, Bill, you can't eat a gallon.
Yes, I can. I can eat a gallon of it.
No, a gallon is huge.
No,
you can't eat a gallon. You cannot eat a gallon.
I didn't even finish the chicken. Of course I can eat a gallon.
All
I can't
right.
do it at once. It might take me a couple hours. So Phil buys a gallon of coleslaw from New Hickory. Go back to the observatory. And you made a little sign.
We made signs. I'm sorry we don't have the pictures, but we hung. Poor Bill, like a little mannequin. We hung this sign on. It says "Whittle begins,"
Yep.
and there he is with his first spoonful of coleslaw.
Right. So I'm knocking it down. I'm feeling good, and I get through like a couple of these little bowls, and I'm thinking, man, I'm on a roll. And I've now gotten through maybe 10% of the gallon of coleslaw.
Maybe.
And then all of a sudden, I just keep stuffing this into my mouth. And then I start thinking, this is not going to be as easy as I thought it originally was going to be. But I'm still good. I'm still good.
do it.
I'm just still doing it. What was left? And I don't even think I could finish chewing. The final picture of me is of me with coleslaw coming
Coleslaw hanging out of your mouth.
I bet I could eat a gallon of coleslaw. No, you can't. Yes, I can. This is the power of having an intense competitive nature and a very, very small brain. All right, so here we go. We're going to go do some Facebook questions on account of we said we would. And I said Facebook questions because this one's a Facebooky kind of show. So let's go see what's waiting for us there at our Facebook page. Okay, hang on. Let's see what we got.
All right.
Now, I'm going to bet that there's an Eric Blake question in there somewhere, but that's because I'm a betting man. Let me move these guys over here. Come on, load page. Why is it's so? Come on, Facebook. It's not a big deal. There it is. Okay. Go away.
Dave Booty says, what are these guys talking about? I went outside. It sounds like our hot air balloon they're talking about.
So here we go. So here are some questions for
Mrs. O'Hara's cow.
Mrs. what?
Mrs. O'Hara's cow.
Yeah, that's
Reference
right.
to the Great
Yeah,
Fire
yeah,
in Chicago.
exactly.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Mrs. O'Leary's cow?
Oh,
I think it
yeah.
was some Irish woman's
I
cow.
don't know. Some woman, yeah. She was probably trying to make Chicago hot dogs. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to skip over any political questions because that's all I dealt with, and I said personal questions only tonight. So I'll get to these, and I'll talk about I did my moving back to America today was on the California elections. Elon Musk question. It's not really personal. Let's see, not a personal question. Sorry, I'm not even going to read it. Okay, Dave Olson. We all know and envy Bill for outpunting his coverage with the lovely Lieutenant Commander Melnikova Whittle. Tell us something of the times he underpunted his coverage. Did you track that?
No.
Well, I married up.
Yes.
Right? And they know Natasha.
Uh-huh.
So now they want to know what happened when I didn't marry up. In other words, what kind of she-hags and lunatics was I dating? It's actually, I wasn't dating at all when I knew you.
No.
And I probably wasn't dating for another 20 years after I knew you. There were she's not Natasha, don't watch all this. There were at the Museum of Science when we were running planetarium shows. The museum was outside. We were in the planetarium, separate entities, by the way, and separate bookkeeping, separate all this. And they had these candy stripers.
Yes, they did.
So these are like teenage girls who are coming in to volunteer.
Right.
And I'm a teenage boy, and swinging planetarium operator. And there was this
nice to meet you.
There was this one candy striper named Robin O'Reilly, and I just had such a crush on her. And I said, hey, you want to come back and help me? You know, maybe you could take tickets while I run the show. She came back like once, and that was the end of that. Apparently, she heard me speak to her. I still regret that to this day. It's like I should have gone back and done that again. Yeah, we had, you know, the only women that worked there were kind of nuts.
Yes.
You know, really nuts. But we would do things this is not the kind of thing that's attractive to women, I've learned. So you know,
Really?
when you're talking about like what did your boyfriend do today? Well, I'll tell you what your boyfriend did today. Your boyfriend and his friends went up behind the dome while Rolando Mias, who is the really great man, he's
Yes.
a Cuban refugee, but he ran all the Spanish shows. He was planetarium director, and Rolando had some big show, and your boyfriend and his friends went up behind the dome.
Oh,
while
now
he
you're
was
going to
doing
tell
this
them
thing.
that?
Yeah, and we took long electrical piping.
Conduit, yep.
And we stuck him out through the projector holes in the back, and when he was talking, we and that's just chicks just die when they turn to butter. You tell them a story like that. So no, he really can't help you with that. I can since I'm in a forgiving mood, I can show you what the college version of me looked like. I've got one picture I actually like better. So okay, here. So here's what I looked like in high school. These are my friends, and when I couldn't fly, these are the friends of mine who we just made movies, and we made comedies, and that's me in the upper right-hand corner with the afro and the super groovy arrowhead pendant. I used to try to make my hair straight, and then I went to this, instead of a barber shop, I went to this place on a Dixie Highway called the Butterfly. Might have been the Butterfly. I'm pretty sure it was the Butterfly, the Butterfly Salon. And you go in there and they're playing music. They're playing Fleetwood Mac.
Whoa.
Yeah. And instead of getting a haircut, the guy said, "Man, you should just pick it out." Just gave me like a pick and gave me this round thing, and I put my pendant on there. Didn't make the slightest difference. It's still completely lost. But down in the front center is Fritz Broner, who's my best friend, and I've known him since I was playing Little League Baseball. And the guy with his arms crossed is Steve Stipp, who's also, both Steve and Fritz and I worked at the planetarium at the same time. But as far as the whole chick magnet thing goes, here's yours truly in his freshman year in college. You can see first of all you can tell the manly physique and the super sense of fashion. This is what astronauts would have looked like if hell were on Earth and it was 1970. And is that a watch on my arm?
I don't know.
Probably no. It's a cuff, and I'm doing the smiley face thing like this because somebody said, "Smile, Bill. Can you smile for once?" Smile. There's a smile. What a charming guy. So he doesn't really have much to tell you about that. That came considerably later, but when it did come, baby, did it come.
Katie, bar the door.
Katie, bar the door. All right, so let's see. Go back to this.
Serious question.
Hey, Bill. Hey, Phil. Here's my serious question for the week. Brace yourself. So, Bill may remember what I said before the recall election about who do I blame if. I'm just not going to take personal political questions. Sorry, Eric. I'm just not today. I'm having too much fun. I don't
You
need
still
to
play Star Citizen.
Nope, and that's not going to do it either. No, I'm not. Here we go.
I met Bill's mother.
Let me read the question.
Okay,
So
sorry.
Steve Young says, welcome to the lounge, Bill. A lifelong friendship is very rare. So my question is, did you meet with young Bill's parents back in the day, and did you ask what the hell?
I did meet his mom, and I did meet his siblings. I don't think I ever met your dad. I don't remember meeting your dad.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I did meet your mom. His mother was a charming lady. And she was obviously very busy with all these kids. She was like the lady in the shoe there. She had a whole mess of kids there for them, and they're all like this, or wilder. One of them, silverfish. I don't know. One of them, what was Evan's name? Evan was the one that sold, right? Silverfish. One of them sold Bill's prize F4 Phantom model that he had built. Goodness knows how many hours.
I had built an entire Air Force of 1/72nd scale models. I honestly I had B-52 on the ceiling, and I had 4 F4s, and I mounted them on strings, and they were peeling off, and I had MiG-21s. I had C-130. I built everything at 1/72nd scale. And then I got this 1/48th scale F4, which was about this big. And I put a lot of work into that baby.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Got the camouflage right, did the spray painting, did the matte black on the nose, did all of this stuff. went down, won an award at Orange Blossom Hobbies.
That's right.
And I came home one day and I couldn't find it, and I started looking everywhere. And after half an hour, I'm like frantically looking everywhere. I'm looking in the dryer.
Oh.
You know, I really was, and behind the dryer, because I looked everywhere, and I was looking. What happened to my airplane? Where's my airplane? What happened to the F4? And nothing. And finally, after about an hour, my mom says, "Look, I can't take it anymore. I can't. You're going to drive yourself crazy. It's gone." "What do you mean it's gone?" "Your brother Evan sold it." "He did what?" "Yeah, he actually sold it to a friend of his." "Well, get it back. Where's Evan?" "What did you do with my airplane?" I give it a friend." "Well, get it back." I can't get it back." "Why not?" "Because we crashed it and we poured lighter fluid on it and put a firecracker inside it and blew it up." "What? You did what?" "That was my life. My life."
So this is what his mother had him try to manage.
I was.
She was a real trooper.
Poor Stevie, Evan. I mean, because Steve was a year younger than me. Evan was 5 years younger than me, 6, and so he would tag along. And when we were in Bermuda, in my dad's hotel, so I was probably 10, 11. Steve was 9 or 10, and Evan must have been 3 or 4. And up in the hotel, it was only 3 stories at the beginning. They had these laundry chutes, just a big round hole, and you throw the dirty laundry in there, and it would go down into the laundry room. And there's a canvas cart down there. We used to love those canvas carts because they'd have them out by the pool, and we'd get in them and we'd hide under there, under the towels. And then all of these pool boys who were from Italy and really who had like big families and missed them really much, you know. So they'd always like, "Have you seen Bill?" "No, we don't know where he is." "Oh," so then they'd start spinning us around. They'd run us under the shower, you know, and they'd run us around, spin us around. It was great. So we said, "This is so much fun." So we picked up Evan and put him in the laundry chute.
Oh, gee.
And he went down 3 stories, hit the curve, and landed right in the middle of a bunch of towels that happened to be there. So I guess that's
no
revenge.
wonder he sold your plane.
I guess that's revenge. Yeah. So there's that. Your first memory of me? I guess it was the RPY.
The RPY thing, yeah, RPY, which probably was your second or third visit to the planetarium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And you kept coming around. And for those of you who ever wonder, like, how do you get started at something? Bill's the perfect example. He just kept coming around looking for ways to volunteer. What can I do here to help out? Is there something I can do? And when there wasn't, well, he'd just sort of hang out. And he got to be a familiar face. He got to be somebody that was reliable. He was there all the time.
Vomit needed to be cleaned.
Okay.
Tickets needed to be torn.
Yeah, okay.
Oil needed to be cleaned.
That's right.
7 years of oil.
I mean, and that's the way you do it. I mean, if you want to get ahead at someplace, you take on extra responsibility. You do more than you were asked to do, and you do better than you were asked to do. And it doesn't always work, but you do it enough times and it works.
And I mentioned this on either the last show. I mentioned it recently. I'm not going to, well, I will. I'll go into the exact same amount of detail. So I've been working as an usher there for a year, something like that. And as we talked about earlier, you know, I was practicing and I saved Doug's bacon that time on that thing. And I was actually, and after all the times he made me roll down and do somersaults and things like that and make me swear that the Klingon Empire is better, I was actually extremely happy when I saved his bacon. He comes running out, you know,
Yeah.
Here. It's all done, man. I got it.
I got it for you.
I saved it for you. There's 300 people out there. Don't let that bother you. So anyway, there was a point I was about to make. Do you remember what I was saying before I said that?
At our age.
No, I remember.
Okay,
so I was a
good.
console operator. I wanted to be a console operator. I was 13, 14 years old, and you know, it's a fairly complex job. And we had a whole staff of guys that were doing it. And we had moved on from Long Journey Beyond God. We'd gone to the next show, which I want to say was Jupiter Jitney, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's not the real name.
It was, it was about Pioneer 10.
Yes, we call it
Is it something
Jupiter.
Jupiter? Something we called it Jupiter Jitney. So we had that second show up, and then Jack brings in somebody from another planetarium. He says, "I'd like to show him Long Journey Beyond God. Can one of you guys run this?" And Doug wasn't available. Another guy wasn't available. You weren't available, and and you had to put all the projectors up and do all this. I said, Jack, I can do this.
I can set the show.
I can do it. I can run it.
We called it setting the show.
Yeah, I can run it. And he said, no, Bill, this is important. You know, it's not something. I said, Jack, I come in early, I stay late, I just play around. I'm telling you, I can do it. You can do it and not make any mistakes. I don't know if I won't make any mistakes, but I can do it. All right, tee it up. So we start this thing and all the Apollo sequence cues, and it just nailed it. Just nailed it. Perfect show. And after it was over, his friend went out the front, and Horkheimer came back to the console. And he said, "You're running show starting tomorrow."
Yeah.
And a year after that, I started writing them. So yeah, it's just you make, you know, it's like if you really want to be someplace, it's real simple. Provide nothing but benefit and take absolutely nothing back. Right?
That's right.
Cost them nothing. Cost them nothing. Just be there, be responsible, and in time, you were doing that. When I told the story, I think I told it to Mike Rowe. I said, you know, you never know when opportunities knocks, but you better have your bag packed, right?
That's right.
I mean,
yeah.
when he said somebody needs to run the show, and I'd wanted to be a console operator, I could have said, I probably could do it, but you know, I should probably take a chance. You know, it's like I don't want to screw it up. It's like, no, I can do this. I know I can do this, and that's how it happens. That's how I got all of this glamour that you see in front of you today. But yeah, Marisha says, be invaluable. Marisha, I can't thank you enough for finding that thing.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And we're like, both of us are practically weeping. We're weeping. It's like we just
I was teary. I just know. I admit it. Yeah. Hearing that again.
So let's see. We got a couple others. I'll tell you what. We covered why did you call him termite? We got to that earlier.
Most embarrassing. I think we covered. There was a question about most embarrassing. Up just a little bit further. Right there. What was yours? Remember meeting Bill? Yep.
The most embarrassing Bill stories. I think we covered a lot of them, but you may have something better.
No, I do need a moment near the end. Do need a moment to be a little bit serious, but we'll take that right at the end.
Okay. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We're gonna.
How are we doing on time?
We're doing fine. I'm just gonna take questions from the comment stream live now.
Okay.
Because we're having ourselves an absolute blast, and yeah. So Bill, refresh the page. Eric Blake has put a question up there, and when Eric says refresh the page, then I need to. I better refresh the page. So let's see if it's got anything about politics. Not going in, I'm telling you. Let's see what we got. And so we're refreshing the page.
Lightning speed.
Here it comes. So 18 more comments, and let's see what we got. Elon Musk. Question for Elon Musk. Serious question for the week. Recall. All right. Oh, here we go. That picture of you two and the boys early on. There's a girl behind the guy on the right. Who was she, and what the heck was she doing with the likes of you? Must have been related by blood. That's the only possible explanation.
We've been talking about that picture early before we went on the air.
Bring it back.
I think it was somebody from the museum staff. I think she's a Hispanic lady from the museum staff. A little older than us, and either married or in a relationship. I can almost see her face, but I can't pull out her. But the planetarium and the museum were in co-joining buildings, and we were very different staff. I mean, we would go into the museum to get up to the observatory. We had
but
a snack bar.
They were definite territories.
But yeah, I mean, they were a whole different group, and I'm thinking there was a Hispanic lady that worked there, but I'm not certain. If we could see a little bit more,
you actually look shockingly cool in that picture, I have to say. I mean,
it's the glasses.
It's a 20th of a second, right? Yeah. I mean, you take enough pictures eventually. You
really
look.
I have a little bit of Tom Cruise Top Gun look to me.
You do, man.
Aside from the fact that my tie is flying apart instead of being tacked together,
You look great. I'm getting ready to fly over this island, and they put me up in the front, which they don't do anymore. But I was up in the front of the 727 when they circled the island and all the rest of it. Yep. So we're getting some non-political questions, but I'd like personal questions, like, history. We went water skiing at lakes. Phil took us water skiing, taught me how to water ski.
Oh yeah,
right by Miami International Airport.
Right by Miami International Airport, where if you went there now with an RPG, you could bring down airplanes. So clearly they don't allow anybody. I mean, we were there where you would hear the wingtip vortices go by going, whoosh, 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 whoosh. And of course the smell of jet fuel in the air. I'm sure in California we know that it causes cancer, but we didn't know in Miami about
That's
cancer.
why we didn't get cancer, because we didn't realize that it would cause it.
That's right. That's right. So I had a small outboard boat, and it had just enough power to pull 2 people if you were careful. So I would drive, and Doug and Bill would ski. We'd tandem ski behind, and they did a takeoff on the Thunderbirds. They were called the Aquabirds, and they would stand in the back of the boat, put their gear on, and we always wore good flotation gear, and they would in tandem take their skis and shoo, throw them into the water. They would salute each other, turn around and do a backflip into the water, swim over in tandem, get their skis while I tightened up the ropes, and then they would ski and salute and did all sorts of other insane stuff. So yes, we were the first people with the Aquabirds.
They were great, and I remember learning how to ski. It's like, can't do it, it's impossible. Then suddenly you can, but we didn't stop there because Phil had these trick skis, so we had to figure out how to ski backwards.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And when you're learning to ski backwards, it's different than learning to ski forwards because you're going backwards.
That's right.
And one of the differences about going backwards over the water versus going forwards is where your nostrils are relative to your nose.
When you're
going forward, the relative wind is doing this.
That's right.
You see, it's creating a little low pressure area here. But when you're skiing backwards and you fall, your water is doing this.
You get the sinus wash effect.
See, I drank half of that lake. And it was utterly impossible. And we were trying to figure out, I remember when you got them, because none of us know how to do it.
No.
And we were trying to figure out, we had 2 theories. One of them was constant tension.
Right.
And the other was a jerk and twist.
Right, that's right. Right.
And all I remember from the jerk and twist is jerking, twisting, and then seeing the sky.
That's right. That's right. And we did find it. We kept thinking there should be a place where you can watch videos to learn how to do this. We wanted YouTube, but it wasn't there yet.
No,
1974, no YouTube.
No YouTube. And not only did you have a boat, you had something that most people couldn't believe. You had an airboat.
I did indeed have an airboat, yes. Yep.
Those of you not familiar with them, they are flat-bottom aluminum things with a propeller on the back. And they're used to go in the Everglades because the water is this deep there, and they just kind of slide over things.
Yes, yeah. I had a 4-cylinder Continental aircraft engine, 65 horsepower, easy enough to start that we hand propped it. It didn't have a starter, but sometimes we'd borrow my dad's boat. Dad had a 6-cylinder Franklin aircraft engine, 400 cubic inch airboat. That would do, we had an airspeed indicator on it, and it would do over 65 miles an hour in this much water with sawgrass.
Just damp water. It's just morning dew. Yeah.
Oh,
that's sawgrass.
Yeah, yeah. And scary. And these things like to go sideways as much as they like to go forwards. It was real scary.
Yeah, they would because you just had a rudder, right? You're just directing the flow. You got
air rudders. There's no water rudder. It's just in the air, and a big tiller. Where's that camera? A big tiller. You push forward to go right. Pull back to go left. Yep.
And there's nothing biting the water. I was sailing a sunfish once, those little tiny little sailcraft.
Yeah.
And this was in Key Biscayne, and we're out there, and I look up and say, oh, a water spout. How interesting. I'd better get this boat back on shore before the water spout hits me. And I'm trying, and the boat's it's just sliding. It's like, you idiot, you didn't put the centerboard down. Put that centerboard down, and it just dug in. Zoom.
Off you go.
Off we went. But I remember, I rode the airboat once, and I remember
loud.
I remember something. He's like, "You're I said, what? What? It's really loud. Yes, it is really loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those were.
That's why they're hearing aids in my ears now.
God. And and deadly too. You know, the spilling propeller blades. There,
oh yeah, right behind you. Yeah.
We went. Somebody asked earlier on the comment section. I saw, have I ever seen like dark skies? And I have. I've seen like completely dark skies. Driving across middle of Texas, I've seen dark skies. But in Miami in 72, 73, if you drove into the Everglades for about an hour, you'd get really seriously dark skies. I'm sure it's not true anymore because Miami is so much bigger. But so we would go out to this place on Alligator Alley. You weren't doing this so much. It was the junior league. You you didn't come out with this as much as I went out with like Scott Smith.
We're going out to
Shark Valley?
Yes. And that all started because Bill Dishon was friends with somebody Smith, I think. I'm not sure about his last name. Anyway, a ranger out there. And he found out that we were amateur astronomers, and we got permission to go out after the last bus went out to take the tourists down, because you went from Tamiami Trail south about 6 miles to the tower. And he got permission for us to go after the general public was out of there, so they wouldn't see us.
It was like a gate in a paved area.
Right. And then we drove down and spent the night at the tower, at the observation tower.
So
and it's beautiful dark skies.
We would go out there almost, well, when I say we'd go every weekend, we'd go every weekend when the damn moon wasn't in the sky.
Right.
But there was a guy at the Junior Southern Cross Astronomical Society, I think his name was Scott Smith, and he had a 12-inch reflector. And that telescope must have been, what, 12 feet long?
It was long. It was huge.
And he put it on a trailer. He put it on a trailer, and he towed it behind a VW minivan, a microbus or whatever they're called, and people would almost like swerve out of the way because it looked like an artillery piece. We take this enormous telescope out in the middle of the Everglades, and the thing I remember is, my God, the stars are so beautiful, and these mosquitoes are going to carry me away.
Oh yeah. We ran mosquito coils and sprayed off. Yeah.
I do not miss that at all.
Yeah.
At all. So we'll do a little more, and then we'll call it a night. One of the things that we did was, because I talk about road trips all the time, and so there was something going on. Spitz, the people that made the planetarium projector,
right,
were in Chadsford, Pennsylvania,
right,
and they'd come up. Oh, we mentioned like at the beginning
the cutoffs in the oil. Yeah.
So sometime after God knows how much oil is spilled and all the rest of it, they said, "I have an idea. Instead of bolting the lights on and inside of these two like hemispheres with liquid, why don't we just put like a cup holder there and just hang them
like a swivel cup holder on a boat,
and work perfectly, and they'd still explode, but they wouldn't take the oil with them." And by the way, you remember these lamps, as they burned, they got the metal got a little more farther apart, and that meant that the light source became wider. And when we were doing like a special show, we'd have a couple like the good lamps in there. We put the good lamps in, and you say, "Yeah, take it back, Eddie." Anyway, so we go up to Chadsford, Pennsylvania. I visit some relatives. Phil flies up there, and Bill Dishon, who was another one of the gang with Doug Gagan, drives up there in his green Renault.
That's right. Yep.
With a tan interior.
Yes, that's right.
And we see this presentation in Chadsford, and we're in the Northeast, so we might as well visit the Smithsonian since we're in the Northeast.
Yeah,
we're in Pennsylvania, but
we're right there.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we're late. We're running to the Smithsonian, and then we ran through the Smithsonian basically, right?
Yeah, pretty much. We didn't stop for anything.
Just
yeah. And then on to the Washington Monument.
Astronaut Scott Smith has some good astrophotographs. Can that be the same guy? The internet is amazing, and connections and 6 degrees of separation and all the rest of it. I hope if you can find him, I'd love to talk to him. So then we decided, well, since we're in Washington, hey, let's do the.
We would run behind the smoke trucks.
Oh
with
my
the mosquitoes.
God.
That's definitely Prop 65 problems there.
I'll talk about that in a second too. So we just went to the Washington Monument. We said, "Oh, the Washington Monument." The Washington Monument.
Right.
So we go up the hill. We take the elevator up to the top, and then we were trying to get to the Smithsonian. We did that for the Smithsonian.
So
we had to get there before we closed.
Okay.
So we said, we're not going to take the elevator down. We're going to take the stairs, not up, down. And so we're going down the stairs.
500 and some odd steps.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're going and we're going and going and going. And at about halfway down, we realized we couldn't slow down because the muscles in your leg that are strong enough to lift you are strong, but the muscles that are,
letting you down,
not so much. Out. And we were like on a runaway train. We're just going round and round and round. We just couldn't stop. God. So anyway, we do this thing, and we come back, and we're so tired. We were always just tired.
Here goes Scott Smith.
We drove back. I wonder if it could be the same Scott Smith. Is it possible?
Scott Smith.
I wonder if it's the same.
Certainly could be.
His age is about right. I think that might be Scott Smith. Well, this is actually beautiful. Scott Smith photography. Well, I will ask Scott Smith if he is in fact Scott Smith.
That's right.
And he'd better provide me with an accurate answer. So we're driving back, and anyway, we're just bleary-eyed. I think there was one other. Can't think of anything we didn't cover really. We covered pretty much all of it in excruciating detail. But so now it's time to do the serious stuff. Phil's got something serious to say, but before he says something serious, I wasn't kidding. I was a lost kid. My dad was a busy man. I didn't see much of him, and my parents got divorced, and I was utterly lost. And I went to the planetarium because it was cool technically, but you and Doug and Bill Dishon are 10 years older than me, and Phil was the older brother I never had, and when I was really in trouble, he's just a real devout Christian, and he never pushed anything on me, just by example. You know what? Here's what I remember. We were driving along in your car, and I had the window down, and I threw something out the window, and you turned to me and said, "Why did you do that?" I said, "I don't know. Why? What do you mean you don't know? Why did you throw it out the window?" You know you're not supposed to throw stuff out the window, right? So why did you do it? Don't throw stuff out the window. Okay, right, you're right, I won't. And I never forgot that, It's like, why did you do that? Why? It wasn't like, what's the matter with you, you idiot? It was just kind of, why did you do that?
Think about this.
Think about it, yeah.
That's right.
Why did you do it? I guess that's because I was kind of stupid. And it was just real simple. It was like, right from wrong. You know what right from wrong is? He didn't teach me the difference between right from wrong. He taught me that I knew the difference between right and wrong, and I wasn't always paying attention, So yeah, that's why I'm glad he's here.
So
I want to know where in North Carolina are you? You probably don't have to give him the street address, but
I live in Hickory, North Carolina. It's about an hour east of Asheville, or an hour northwest of Charlotte. We're almost in the mountains. Beautiful, beautiful countryside there. I live there with my wife Bobby. We have 2 daughters. We have 2 grandchildren. And let me tell you, grandchildren are so much more fun than children.
I remember I was there when Christy was born.
Yeah. So to sort of wrap up sort of my feelings about this, Bill's right. I wound up unintentionally being big brother to him. I mean, there was a time when I loaned him an Arthur C. Clarke paperback book, and I kept waiting for it to come back, and it didn't come back. I said, "Bill, I want my book back. I want my book back." And then he shows up with this tattered some other Arthur C. Clarke book, and I went, "No, I loaned you, I don't know which one of the many books it was. That's the book I want, and you can't do this. In fact, that's interesting.
Sorry.
You can't do that, and you can't. You even tried snagging a book from the library. Do you remember that?
No, I have no memory of this whatsoever.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah, and I said, no. You're going to have to either find my book, or you're going to have to get me another copy, because that's the way it went. And that's what we did. We did a few things like that. It's not like I went home and thought, now I got to do this. It just, like you said, it was just sort of second nature. So the years go by, and eject starts. Bill writes Silent America, and one day in the mail comes this book, and I opened it up. It's a copy of Silent America, and Bill has written this wonderful inscription in there about, you've seen me get teary-eyed already over over the movie, the soundtrack there for Long Journey. I read this thing, and how much you meant to me, and you were my big brother when I needed one, and it was like, oh man, the tears flow. And I showed it to Bobby, and she's like, that's really great. She said, that's what you do with people. It's not like I set out to do it. It just happened, and we were good buddies, absolutely.
Yeah, and it didn't just happen with me. Bobby says that he's her knight in shining armor. And
there she is. Here she is.
Hello, Bobby. I watched them get married. I was at their wedding and everything. And Phil, somebody said, hey, we need somebody to deliver pizza to the homeless people in Hickory. So Phil went down there and did it once, and then there was nobody to keep doing it, so he just kept doing it. It's just a field, man. It's a field of goodness that you project, and it's always been there. And Doug didn't have it, and Bill didn't have it, and no one else did. But I really felt it. And the greatest thing about it was you never, ever, ever pushed any of this stuff on me. Ever, ever, ever. It was just plain example, just example. And not just like moral example. So for my birthday, I think must have been my 14th birthday. This is the result of working in a planetarium. I decided I wanted to get a record player, I wanted to get an album, and I needed an amplifier. So the album I got was Brandenburg Concertos, which is not the first album that most teens buy.
Not usually, no.
No. So I got that album, had a turntable, and I needed an amplifier, so you said, let's get a Heathkit. Was it AA14?
Yep.
And I remember I had the Pro 4 AA headsets.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember the AA's were kind of cool. And so we're on the workbench in the back, extremely sophisticated technical. Just a couple pieces of wood on it.
Yeah.
And all these parts come out, and he's telling me how you can tell which transistor does which by the little rings and circles around it. And I'm saying, all right, yeah, okay, let me just get to the soldering, because I'm an expert at soldering. How hard can it be? And so I put these things in there, and I get this thing, and I've seen people solder things, and it's like, and then feel like this, it's perfect.
Let's try it again.
And then it's coming loose, It's like, what the hell is going on? What's going on? But you just sat there with me. We built this amplifier,
we did, yeah.
And then we plugged it in,
and it worked.
And it blew my mind. I remember it clear as day. I remember the front of that thing. I remember the glass on it. I remember it had like a little blue something on the front.
It did, yep.
And it was like, and the front would light up. We
Backlit
plugged
kind of
it in,
thing, yeah.
and the light came on. Good sign. We had signal going into it, and we turned it on, and this sound,
came
out of this box that I had just attempted to wire, and it worked. And this is the kind of thing, It's like we talk about like the moral aspect of it, but it's like. You want an amplifier? Yes. Well, we really can't afford to get one, but we can build one.
Mm-hmm.
So
we did.
So we did.
Yep.
Yeah. So we did. He didn't have enough money for a telescope, so he ground the mirror, and we just, Phil and I both. It's not like we were in the right place at the right time. We were in the right place all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the place we wanted to be all the time, and that's how things happen.
Yep.
And by the way, you did get your book back, but it was just not the same book.
That's right.
And I should mention parenthetically that unique among many other authors, on eBay a signed copy of Silent America is actually worth less than an unsigned copy. And I remember what I wrote because I had a stamp, and I just anybody bought it was
wrong. It was very heartfelt. It was very moving what you had to say to me.
Well, thank you. So so this is the reminiscing show, and honestly, guys, it's been really fun. Marusha, again, I've been looking for Long Journey Beyond God. I'd like to find a higher quality version, honestly, but if I can't, I'm going to promote these shows because people need to hear what Jack Horkheimer wrote, and all they know about him is Star Hustler, and Star Hustler was always very campy. I never particularly liked Star Hustler.
Yeah, I agree.
But when he was on his game, and that was pretty much all the time when he was. When Star Hustler happened, he stopped caring about the planetarium. He was like Star Hustler famous.
Yes.
And by the way, you know why he changed his name to Stargazer?
No.
Oh, he was Star Hustler forever, and then he did the show, and he became Stargazer. It's because the internet had just happened, and people were searching for Star Hustler, and they were going to Hustler magazine.
Oopsie daisy.
Yeah, and that's not what the youth of America was really thinking.
If you could see the whole show in the planetarium with 1970s eyes, you would be absolutely blown away.
John Persing says, can you recreate the video for the audio? I could, and I will. I can get the audio, and I can just put slides up. I won't do like 4 slides at a time, but I remember what those slides were. Right? I could absolutely do it.
Yeah.
The patch logos were like in 3 and 4. I could and here's the lunar module, and here's this and that. Yeah, it would be great. The last one. I know we've just like Lord of the Rings. We should have closed it here. We're going to just keep going. So there's one last thing, and we mentioned it earlier, and I want to talk about the high tech, remarkable technological achievement of the Munoz system.
Oh, the Munoz slide projector.
I'll tell them what it is, and then you can tell them how it got built. So one of the things that we used a lot is we had like a horizon. So at the beginning of Long Journey of a Young God, just as one example, we had the Kennedy Space Center,
Right.
which was not a whole lot of vertical thing, just
Right.
grass and then the VAB and then the launch tower. And then, so we got this horizon, and then at the end of the show, we needed Stonehenge. And we didn't have room or money or time to put 2 sets of projectors up there. So we came along with the Munoz system.
Indeed.
And now you can tell them about the Munoz system, and then I will tell them about what operating the Munoz system was.
So the problem with this is it took 5 slide projectors to go about 200 or 210 degrees around the dome, so that the audience had the effect of seeing it all the way around them. Unless they turned their head all the way around, it was all encompassing. It was the early version of Omnimax kind of a feeling. You know, I mean, it was immersion. Well, the problem is you could do this with 5 carousel projectors, but in order to get a seamless horizon all the way across, you need perfect registration when the slide drops into the projector. And carousel projectors do not provide, at least that time, did not provide perfect registration.
Because otherwise you see the seams between the...
That's right, yeah. And sometimes, you know, they would line up exactly, and sometimes they'd be a little off vertically, sometimes be a little off horizontally, and it just wasn't good. So a technician before me named George Munoz, a Cuban guy, amazing machinist, built 5 projectors. And these 5 projectors that he built, I mean, he built them from scratch, had a disc,
Aluminum disc.
a big aluminum disc, and it had room for either 5 or 6 positions around there. And you put a slide in there, and it had little clamps, and after you adjusted it many times, and you tighten it down. So then you'd set all the discs to position number 1, and everything would be ready. I mean, it took hours to tweak those slides.
But once you got each slide in the right place, it locked there.
Because as the disc turned, every time it came around, a pin came out and went right into a hole, and a finely machined hole. And this looked like something that German or Swiss machinists would make. I mean, George was amazing. And then when you wanted to change slides, you'd push the button, and these little motors would run for the right amount of time. And as they coasted into position, the pin would be pushing, and it would set you for the next horizon, usually.
Yeah. It was not so much a pin as it was like a rounded thing. I thought it was made out of plastic.
It had a Delrin tip to it,
okay,
the conical kind of a thing, yes.
Right. So great. Fantastic. So here we are. We're at the Kennedy Space Center, and we fade this thing out, and I'll show you where the Munoz system is, by the way. Give me 1 second. Nope. Yes. So, oops.
It's over to the right.
Yeah. I just think I moved my picture. I'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, here it is. So on the right-hand side, you can see that dial there. That's the Munoz horizon system. So you would push the button. You can see if you look carefully up in front of the dome, there's a dimmer pot on on a long steel neck there. So you would have your did I move this? No, it's good. So you'd have Kennedy Space Center, strobe light goes on, Saturn V lifts off, and you'd fade this thing down and start the stars spinning, and then you always advance the slide the second you're done with it, because otherwise you will forget.
Right.
So thing was down, you hit this thing, and you could hear it. And all five projectors had solenoids, and you hear the solenoid kick in, click, and then you hear the wheels go, and then we click, click, and lock. But sometimes it didn't. The pin didn't come all the way out, and sometimes it came all the way out, but there was, for some reason or another, not enough juice to get the thing all the way around.
Right.
So now you're like, oh, here's Kennedy Space Center, and now we present Stonehenge. And Stonehenge, 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 lunar surface, Stonehenge. Right? And it's like, oh.
Or Stonehenge.
Or you're like this. And there's no solution. If, and this was what mostly happened, if one of those projectors had not gotten all the way, if you were good, you could kind of bump it. You could just kind of go,
and the other ones would hold. Yeah.
But if you didn't, if you messed it up and you hit it too long,
all of
them go at the same time, and that's bad. Yeah, that's not good. And Yeah, I think that the
Munoz.
Munoz system. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just had so much fun, and I learned so much. By the time I was 15, I'm listening to classic music and all of this stuff, and Jack Horkheimer did all of that. After Jack kind of went to Star Hustler, I told Phil about this. He kind of lost interest in the planetarium. This would be about 75, 76, maybe even a little later.
Yeah.
So we started running shows from other planetariums. And we ran this one show. We bought this one show called The Legacy. And it was a science fiction show. And it was not written by Jack Horkheimer. And it wasn't very good. And I called it The Lethargy. And the problem with The Lethargy was it was significantly under an hour. Jack shows would usually be like 57 minutes. One would like go an hour 3, hour 4.
Yeah.
That's important because if it's longer than an hour, then your shows can be staggered by an hour and a half. You had 90-minute gaps. So we do a 12, a 1:30, a 2, 12, a 1:30.
1,
and a
1, 2:30,
and 4.
4.
And then a 7:30 at night.
Yep.
And yeah.
And sometimes a 9.
Right. So, 3 shows in an afternoon, not so bad. But The Lethargy was short enough so it could run every hour. And as we mentioned before, this place was just the only money that ever came in through the planetarium. So we did that show every hour. And I spent about a year. On weekends, I did 11 shows a day. The same thing in the dark all the time.
Twisting the knobs.
It was really you could just feel that kind of like walls closing in on me. It's like I'm so sick of this awful show. What show am I on? I'm just finishing show number 4. Oh, good.
I only have
I've
7
only
to
got
go.
7 to go. Last thing I'll tell you. I don't know if I ever told you this. Oh, well, this is funny. Janice Harper worked there. And she was actually really cool. And Mr. Coffee had just come out. It's the first time you could ever get a homemade coffee maker. You put the filter and then you put the coffee in it. Nothing like the modern things, but it was a homemade coffee thing. Mr. Coffee. So we had a Mr. Coffee in the office, and Mr. Coffee was great. I don't drink coffee, but everybody's drinking coffee. Janice was going through coffee on Mr. Coffee like it was crazy. We have the press preview, and Janice goes into the office to get Jack.
Yeah.
So the people are already filing in there. Jack is shaving out of the Mr. Coffee. And she said, I'm never drinking out of this thing again, ever. What the hell was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought again. It was, that must have had something to do with
we were
Jack.
doing that. We're talking about the lethargy.
The lethargy, yeah, and then the shows and stuff, and we got a chance to do an hour and a half. It's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
Lost to eternity.
Lost to eternity. But I'm gonna see if we can find a better version. Phil told me yesterday that somebody's remastering Child of the Universe, which is his masterpiece. I like Long Journey better, but Child is a complete masterpiece. And so I just want to use whatever influence and following I have to get it out there, because it's been sitting there for 40 years and it's good stuff. And the Apollo sequence we played was challenging on the thing, but the real heart of the show was, he's talking about the journey of the hero, and you know all of this science fiction stuff and all of it, and it just comes together in this perfect little bow, and it ends with Camelot, Yeah. And it ends literally with the ending of the musical Camelot is the last note of the show, and then the lights come up and everybody applauds, and it's like it
was really good.
Really good.
Yep.
I was telling Phil last night, I still to this day have the planetarium operator's nightmare. The actor's nightmare, I did a little bit of stage acting, a little bit. I was in 2 shows in college. But that's enough to scare you into the actor's nightmare. And the actor's nightmare is one of 2 forms. You are in a car and your curtain time is in 45 minutes, but you are 4 hours away from the theater. And there's nothing you can do about that. And yeah, for one brief shining moment, exactly, Eric. And by the way, there's something up here for you, Phil, about something going on in Hickory. John Pershing, I think it was. Somebody posted something about something in Hickory, an astronomical thing, and they said you should show up. Whoever posted that and scrolled up, if you could repost it, that'd be great. And what the hell was I just talking about? What was I talking about? I don't remember. I just don't remember what I was talking. I guess that means we're probably just out of material. So anyway, it was really fun. And I remember. And Jack's stuff has sat there for 40 years in the dark, and it deserves much better. And furthermore, I can promote as much as I can.
Bob Fest Astronomical Convention is at the Catawba Science Center
in Hickory in January, February. Phil should attend.
Okay, thank you.
Actor's Nightmare, thank you. So the Actor's Nightmare is either you can't get to the show in time, but much more frequently it's like you're on stage and somebody says a line and you haven't got the faintest idea what comes next. I had a version of the Actor's Nightmare once. I swear to God this is true. I'm in the wings and I walk out on stage and the entire show is in Norwegian. And somebody turns to me and says, and they say it, and then it's my cue. And I remember in the nightmare, I went, and it was perfect. It worked just great. So the console operator's nightmare is, the actual life was a nightmare. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you've seen this in a while, Phil. This was on the back door of the planetarium, was put there by Steve Stipp, who was one of the guys you saw in the picture, and a very good artist. I'll load it, image 4492. This was on the wall so long. This was originally done on white paper, but it is now so yellowed that you will see it. It's 4492. And so Steve Stipp managed to capture exactly what working on the planetarium was like. And this is what he did. And this was on the back door of the planetarium for 100 years, and I never forgot it. So here we go. The pilots of the planetarium.
Lower grade.
Low grade pilot, 0 to 100 flights. A flight was a show. You've done 100 shows, you're a lower grade pilot. Fledgling ace, 100 to 200. Junior ace, 200 to 300 shows. First class ace, 300 to 400 shows. Veteran ace, 400 to 800 shows. And then transcendental ace, 800 shows and up. And that, that's it. Just this thing, I saw this so many times that, fuck God, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. All right, pal. Well, we'll have to do this again.
Absolutely.
How about next Thursday?
Sure.
Yeah,
why
okay,
not?
why
You know,
not?
just another week in beautiful Los Angeles,
Yeah.
the city of angels.
City of Angels, and the scenery, and it saves you the trip to Mogadishu. You'd have the Mogadishu experience here in America. So it was great fun, and we'll do it again.
Thank you, audience. I usually watch the show recorded because it does start almost after my bedtime at age 72. So I miss most of the comments. I hear about them all the time, and I hear about the regulars because Bill will call them out. Thank you for supporting this show. Thank you for your support for BillWhittle.com. I, of course, am one of the people that supports it along with many of you. And thank you for putting up with our stories tonight, and apparently enjoying them from what I'm seeing in the comments, and making us laugh. And thank you for making me cry.
Yeah, that was something. Hearing that show again was
Yep.
really
Yep.
something.
Yep.
Okay, guys, this show is made possible as my friend Phil said by the members of BillWhittle.com and keep the lights on and keep things rolling. And so we will see you here, same bat time, same bat station. I'll be back in the chair by myself, and the show will continue to rise to the standards of quality that you expect, that were fostered in both of us by our time at the Miami Space Planetarium, where nothing. No penny was ever spared for the absolute maximum quality. And Horkheimer used to say, I cut shows with the top of a tin can. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.